Right, this is going to be another episode of Summoning Insight here with me, Yamato Cannon. We've got a lot to cover on this one, not only the usual regional aspects. Actually, obviously, LEC didn't play, but we will preview the upcoming playoffs. Obviously, I dropped my truth bomb about Rekkles. We will address that. That will be later in the show, though. It's actually a show if you don't know. Even though it's also a topical show, we'll start with some EWC stuff where it's being announced for League, which is going to also cover the regions. That's actually one thing, obviously, Monty always really cared about, was the idea that actually it's why Summoning Insight existed in the first place. He wanted there to be a serious podcast where people aren't just only doing jokes or general like drama stuff of like, did you hear what he said about him? And so instead, he wanted it to be where people watch all the big regions, all the big games, and you get like a proper breakdown of what's happening. So we'll start with just some news, which is something that actually, fully enough, could have been a topic Monte Cristo would have been talking about on this show. Maybe he'll do it on a future Four Horsemen episode, which is, of course, that as Monty predicted for years and years now. If you don't know, Monty, one, has amazing sources within Riot. He has many friends that have worked in Riot. He even knew some of the first Rioters ever. He knows all the casters. He knows the production people when he used to work Worlds and MSI, etc. Not only does he have amazing connections, but he also is able to sort of, he's known these people long enough to guess how they think. So if you don't know, if you actually went back in time, like 2 years ago, Yamato Cannon, we quite literally on this show, it wasn't me, it was all Monty. Monty actually speculated, like, I think they will get the LCS and merge it with, at the time, he just thought CB LoL. He was like, they'll merge it with CB LoL because that'll be a way to like re-inject, viewership and again, like reorganize the regions, etc. Because NA was falling in viewership. It looked like it was never going to improve. They tried every single thing over the next 2 years. You go in the middle of the week, do it at the end, you do it before, you do it after. They did everything. They just couldn't get it to change. Similarly, he has been, ever since last year, we got the Esports World Cup, which technically wasn't a Riot tournament, I will point out. It's just they licensed the event, essentially, which, by the way, is almost like it being a Riot tournament. Because if you don't know them, they don't let anyone else license tournaments. So, actually, this isn't the era when you get IEMs, obviously, anymore. There's no DreamHacks, etc. So, actually, if you have a tournament now where they allow in, that's sort of like step one of them just making you part of the circuit at that point in time. So Monty's prediction was maybe this year would be MSI or something. They would just take over instead of EWC. Because if you notice, EWC last year was basically just the top teams from the big regions at MSI ported over to Saudi Arabia and they just played EWC. Now, admittedly, it wasn't as good a format. Remember, it was single lane. It was best of 3 for the first 2 rounds. It was a best of 5 final. Funnily enough, if you're old school, you remember this. That was the original LCS playoffs format. Just a little detail for you there. So now we have had some news, which is, I wouldn't say it's the full step, but it's another step towards this just being something where Saudi Arabia / maybe even EWC itself is just part of the actual circuit of League. Because it was announced, it was already teased, I think, at the end of last year by people like James Fudge at the Esports Observer, that there was going to be some form of like Valorant, for example, would be at EWC. It was even actually speculated, by the way, and this would be incredibly controversial, that they might put that Game Changers one where like women play, etc. So obviously that would be like, whoa, like really? Because that would be opening a whole political can of worms, as it were. Now, Riot did say at the time, like, that's the one thing they wouldn't do was put Game Changers there. But the reason I'm saying this to set this up is they've published a story now. It was on the 10th, so that is 2 days ago, and they published it on riotgames.com. Now, Yamato, let me just start here. Have you ever been to riotgames.com?
Only when it comes to things that they don't want to show to the public.
Oh,
I'm surprised the wasn't there, man.
I wasn't even aware this website ever existed, by the way. I've worked in esports quite a long time. I thought LOL Esports is the website we all go to. I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? League of Legends Esports. If you want to know what's going on in the League of Legends Esports, well, you go to that site. But famously, what Riot does is they're quite clever in how they handle their PR, which is they will address stuff, but they don't put anything controversial on lolesports.com, not least because I actually think if people have screenshots of that site, it looks very official. So in the past, they would often, for example, with LCS commissioner stuff, it never would be on LOL Esports. They would say on Reddit, like the commissioner would come on and say, this is going to happen. Or the Chris Greeley guy, I think it's like the head of product or whatever, he would say it on his Twitter. So like they would do it anywhere except the main website. So again, by the way, they haven't put it on LOL Esports. It's on riotgames.com. And the title of the article says, why we're returning to the Esports World Cup with League, TFT and Valorant. Now, the interesting detail here is there's 2 angles to this. One, we'll just talk about the fact that there'll be a tournament there again in League of Legends. That's its own interesting aspect. But the other aspect, obviously, is if you go to the second paragraph of this article, it says, let's start with the basics. We're granting a license to EWC for League, TFT and Valorant for the next 3 years. Now, if it stopped there, Okay, you're just allowing them to run tournaments, same as last year, right? It's just 3 years of that. No, because here's what's different. It says, as part of this agreement, you'll also see limited ads for the EWC, as well as an esports tournament included in Riyadh season later this year during our global tournaments, starting with Masters Bangkok for Valorant. That includes placements similar to what you see from other global esports sponsors, like rotating logo placements during play and video ads between matches with details about the tournament. So to summarize that, if you don't get it, basically what they're saying is they're not just going to allow them to run tournaments and license in that sense. And by the way, you almost certainly charge a fee to license the event like that. But also, by the way, so does Blizzard, so does Nintendo, etc., as far as I know. But they're also basically saying that EWC is going to be a sponsor of, it looks like MSI and Worlds, or, I mean, I don't actually know how much they mean by like global tournaments. If they, at minimum MSI Worlds, it looks like. So the idea would be you'd actually have them appear as a sponsor, like a limited ad would appear saying like, hey, EWC in Riyadh or whatever. Now that part itself has a connection to the past, because you might remember 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, there was the whole Neom drama with LEC, where Neom was going, which is, if you don't know, it was a city project, but sponsored by the same sovereign wealth fund that owns EWC and all the Saudi shit, basically, because it's the Saudi royal family owns the public investment fund that owns the Savvy Gaming Group. It's a complicated nest of companies, but essentially it's the same people at the top. And obviously the aspect there was famously the LEC staff in 2020, when it was the COVID era, came out and actually boycotted the broadcast. And luckily it was resolved. It never actually had to miss a broadcast here. And then that deal, when it was announced on LEC, was cancelled, I think, the very same day. I think it might even have been either the same day or the next day. And famously, they didn't even just do it behind the scenes. They did tweets, and then they all afterwards said things like, you know, we just couldn't allow this to happen. Like, it's disappointing this was even the case. So there's a whole bunch of things here. There's 3 parts, basically. There's 1, we're having another EWC, basically. And we're going to have 3 more years, potentially. 2, at Riot, essentially, you can either say they've lied or they've changed their mind. And then 3, what does this mean for talent? Because I can tell you what, I saw talent last year. I'll use an obvious one because he doesn't work on the broadcast anymore. Quick Shot. Quick Shot was one of the people who came out and said about how proud he was, and he put his job on the line and he couldn't possibly work with that. And then obviously the joke is, once he got separated from Riot, there's a legal phrasing behind that. He just doesn't work with Riot anymore, but he wasn't fired. He just doesn't work with Riot anymore. That's all you need to know legally. He then did EWC, and he didn't just do EWC, by the way, guys, which basically is the people who own Neom. He did all of them. He did like 19 games. He did like the whole thing. So let's start just with the simple one, the most easy question to answer. What do you think about there being another League of Legends EWC and potentially 3 years? What do you think essentially about another international tournament?
I think the weird part is that I don't know in terms of the teams that would play, because like last year they were so lucky that all of the teams that were at MSI were also like just most popular, right? So it just went hand in hand. It was like, oh, we're inviting all the MSI teams because we want to see the MSI thing again. And let's say there's a world where like in the next upcoming tournaments, let's say a T1 doesn't qualify or Fnatic doesn't qualify, something like this. Are they just going to do it differently just because they want to have as many eyeballs at this tournament as possible? Like in terms of that part, it's like as long as it's going to be included in the circuit for what it is, I think from a competitive standpoint, I'll always kind of low-key consider it as a joke until it gets to the point where obviously like it would overtake something like MSI. Like the last year's format was kind of garbage in terms of what it was. The timing was really bad. There was a patch change, and I don't think like competitively it had any bearing. And then on the other side, it's like in terms of what it means as a business decisions from like the Saudi side, it's like that the main issue with esports, right, is it like there's a lot of eyeballs. There's a lot of eyeballs. There's a lot of like fresh minds that can be, you know, shaped in however way you want it. But at the same time, there's no fucking money. Like all these other sports are fucking expensive as all shit in terms of what you can do. So it's like Saudi are getting, you know, for what they want, they get the best bang for the buck. You know, it's just like the perfect storm of things that are necessary. It's like they crave money. They just want eyeballs on how great Riyadh is. And I can see it's like the opportunistic nature of it is just perfect from Saudi like interest, right?
Yeah, I would just say the first one's the easiest of all. It's actually been in my position the whole time when I heard there was going to be EWC last year. I'm in favour of it, as in, I want there to be another international tournament. Like, in fact, when I saw those teams, like, it's basically a run back of a non-Plains MSI, I was like, great, let's watch some more games. Now, I do think, I agree with you, the format was a bit underwhelming, not least because it came after MSI, which I think has the best format right now, in, like, just in esports in general, but in League especially. And so, to me, it just made it not as satisfying. Like, if anything, you would have preferred to do it the other way around. Like, do EWC with this, like, Mickey Mouse format, then do MSI. That would have, like, been a way to, like, build on or capitalise the narrative. Also, I agree with you, because it was essentially, like, if you remember, some of the teams, for real, like, flew from Korea there, and then some of the teams that weren't invited obviously just sat back in LCK not playing. So that also gave you almost that, like, weird Rift Rivals thing of, like, do you actually get sort of punished if you go to this tournament and you don't win it? Like, does it cost you? Because remember, T1 actually initially did have some issues coming back from that tournament. So did Gen G potentially even. So that part is, like, essentially the idea is good. The execution, I'm not as sure on, but I also do think, this might sound silly, but if you haven't ever run an international tournament of that scale, because remember, you're not just inviting teams to any international, you're inviting like T1, the biggest orgs in the world, right? They are not going to want to be part of that, even though, yes, they're getting money and there's all financial incentives, if you do a bad job of it. So you actually probably should run quite a limited tournament the first time, just so you get it done, so you don't fuck it up, you don't have tech problems that last a day, you don't have something like the cooling system breaks and it's overheated in the studio. There's a million things can go wrong that actually, in general, in esports, we're past now. We don't tend to have those problems with Riot on the big broadcasts. If you go watch CS events, Sprite, ESL, they're all pretty good nowadays. They haven't got those sort of issues. So you want to just check that you can actually run the tournament. I can tell you they did the same thing in Counter-Strike. The initial EWC and Gamers 8 were a very limited format. There was also like sort of the 18 playoff type thing. They didn't try to go with some crazy giant like ESL IM Cologne format where you'd have a lot of moving parts and you can't really fuck up the timing on that. You can't have 6 hours where there's no games. So I'm in favour of there being another tournament. I always want to see more matches, even though I used to think those IMs were a bit underwhelming, because if you don't know, Riot wouldn't allow you to have just any teams. You had to have sort of like, 4 LEC teams. Then you could have like 2 wildcard teams, and you had to have like, it was some shit like that. Something like 2 amateur teams had to be in
like host country team as well.
So they sort of did that. Like, they sold it like, we're supporting local talent. That's really just that your event could never be as good as LEC was the idea, or Worlds or whatever. So I was always in favour of having more tournaments anyway. I'm obviously from Counter-Strike, which is an open circuit game. Then you've got the whole angle though, which is, here's the problem. This does tie into the LEC talent part, because the issue here is this. If you ever go back to Riot's statement about cancelling the Neon deal, you can look up, for example, Jakob Wolf wrote a news piece about it. If you ever go and look up their wording, this is where you've got to be really careful when you might have to change your mind later. Their wording goes like, that we've made mistakes and, we're willing to like change from that. And then they say something about how, they're going to be supporting like gamers in Saudi Arabia. By the way, I would take that to imply, they're implying like, we care about like, gay people and women that otherwise why make that statement? Now that's bizarre, obviously, because at the time, and this is actually the problem the talent got into, bro, is no one knew this was going to be a big thing back then. That was actually a year or two before people knew the Saudis would invest this heavily. If you think back then, bro, they'd barely done some of the sports stuff like the boxing and the live golf stuff. So at the time, no one knew. Everyone thought this really is just like basically one shit hot sponsor. It's gone down really badly. I'll even add in a detail. People forget about that one. The reason that also went down really badly is I think they announced that Neon sponsorship, bro, like 2 days after Pride month ended or something like that. And so unfortunately, and this was even investigated by journalists, they did that cynically. They just knew like, all right, the second all the gay stuff, of course, we bring out the Neon thing. And just looks, that in a way is even more gross, because that means, one, you acknowledge there is some sort of psychological conflict or dissonance there. And then 2, you've just cynically waited like, are they out of the room? Right, do it now, which is like, bro, like, that's just too on the nose. So to me, when it got cancelled, the problem is now, you can always say you changed your mind or economic conditions changed, but this is why I think the mistake was the phrasing. If you'd have just said at the time, look, we don't have to take every sponsorship. This isn't a sponsorship that right now, you can use all market language, bro, aligns with our brand and our current culture fit. If you'd have said all that, you could actually now just come out and go, look, the world of esports has changed. We're in esports winter. There isn't the same sort of sponsorship opportunities. Now, in order to keep the league running, we have to take some sponsorship like this. And this is one of the main parts. If you'd have said that, you'd wriggle out of it. The problem here is when you use words like, we've made mistakes, like, oh no, we care about game. That, well, mate, what's changed? Why is it not a mistake anymore? Has something changed for people in Saudi Arabia? Well, it hasn't. They still get their heads cut off and put into prison for doing tweets. Like, that's all still happening. So you made a mistake, because what you tried to do there was get a bit of like extra free press that you were doing a good thing by cancelling it. But now you're doing the event anyway. So I don't really know how you can sort of square that circle. And then on the talent one, I will say it, you've obviously been on the LEC, so I'll be very careful how I say this. My problem is just the same with everyone. I don't actually care if someone works the EWC or works with ESL, for example, who's owned by the same people you might, or like in Counter-Strike, a lot of my friends work for them. In fact, a lot of my friends in League of Legends work for these events. My problem is just this. If you did the same thing Riot did, if all those years ago you didn't just go, look, I just don't want them as a sponsor, or look, this isn't acceptable. But if your whole thing was like, we can't do it for human rights reasons, well, then logically you can't do it now, even if you need the money, because logically the human rights issue still exists. So you've done that to yourself if you're the talent. Now, I'm not going to call everyone out, but there will be some people. You'll probably see it on Twitter. I definitely get a few shots across the bow. So on that aspect, that's also why. Actually, here's one area I'll flip it to you, Yamato. I don't know that you have much to say about that, but I have a question for you, which is this. I know, I can even see it from your Twitter, that you have certain political or social causes you care very deeply about. And actually, I can tell you wake up sometimes and you think, how do I do a tweet about this? And I actually will say in general, I think you've done a very, very good job. So what I want to ask is this: how do you approach that topic? Because I do feel like it's an area everyone's going to have to navigate now. Because I notice in your case, put it this way, I'm not going to be rude, but on the specific topic I know you really care about, a certain area in the Middle East, let's say, if you have opinion on either side of that, you're basically fucked as far as I can tell you about. There is no right answer. Like if you say either side is your side, the other side will hate you and or say it's hate speech or you've violated some sort of social rule that you shouldn't speak about. How do you handle it? Because I noticed you seem to have walked the tightrope pretty well, man. I can get the sense of what you think, but I never get like any kind of flame element to it. And it seems like in general you haven't got in trouble. So how do you think of addressing politics in an esports context?
I like on my side, I like first what's the conviction, right? It's like in my mind it's like I had the clear conviction that if I lose anything for speaking about like Palestine, Israel, then like for me, it was nothing of worth. It's like in my mind, I was ready to lose it all, and I've already lost a lot, and I've lost a lot because of it. But I don't care too much. I just wanted to point it out. Like in terms of like finding, it's like the thing is that it's so tricky with Twitter is like in terms of, it's like there's a spectrum of how people are going to interpret you in terms of how charitable they're going to be, in terms of how like they're going to just spin it in the worst way possible, and you need to just like make sure that you cover all grounds. Like when you're making
trying
that
to
tweet,
think that before you do the tweet. Like,
I don't want it to be able to be misinterpreted in any shape or form. Like I don't want my words to be used to fuel any type of hatred either. Like because in the end, it's like people are going to read those words and interpret them the way they want because the tone and everything is just lost. So it's like I wanted to make sure that if someone's going to misunderstand what I say, it has to be like so intentionally deceptive from their side that they want to fuck me up. So it's just very, very careful in the wording in terms of having something like concrete on Twitter. Like on stream when I talk about it, then it's a little bit more loose and like a little bit more concrete and not as careful because it is a topic that I care about super much because in the end it's like I think for me it's a part of my identity too, you know, because it is like my heritage in the end. So I just came to terms with if I lose anything for speaking up about this, then it is what it is. But I think in the Twitter, as I mentioned, it's just cover all grounds. Yeah. Don't let anyone use your words against you. It's just like be impeccable with your word is the name of the game, you know.
By the way, as I said, I think you're killing it though. I think you've done a very good job sort of not stepping around anyone's toes, but I could get the sense of what you cared about, what you meant on that topic.
I appreciate that, you know. I wanted to add on like the LEC talent side, you know, the main thing for me is just from what I understand too is the LEC talent at the time when it occurred, it's like you had the whole LEC franchise, the rebranding, everything was going super, super well in terms of like the LEC numbers and everything. And I think that the talent had a lot of power because they basically designed the show and they basically, you know, ran, you know, most of the production together with the producers.
I think they did all the skits and wrote them all and everything,
They had so much power in terms of what the show was. And I think that they use that as leverage. And I think over the last couple of years, I do think that the structure in terms of how LEC works is moving away from giving the talent power. It's like I think being in that like position as a broadcast, you don't want to be in a position where your production has power. Like that has been a clear thing for Riot for a very long time, right? And with some of the decisions they've made over like an LTA or even in the LEC, it's like they want to make sure that the talent pool feels like expandable. You know, it's like they are freelance talents and they need to, you know, be a certain way. And I do think in the current landscape, they have a lot less power because they can be much easier replaced, you know?
Yeah.
Like in terms of the names that were working back then, you know, those concrete years, it's like you had like the mainstay names, and now like you have a lot more new talents, and
Sure.
at the same time a lot less work too. It's like LPL broadcast was killed, so it's like now, you know, people just gotta eat, and I think that can be, you know, taken advantage of, because in the end, it's like, I don't know, when you don't have as much sway and much power, it's like maybe now the position just changes completely. But I do agree with you that you put yourself in a bad spot. I do think it becomes very easy to be a hypocrite when you are bound to, you know, other sources of revenue. It's like you work in a game and you work in an esport. You are bound by so many things in a lot of cases, and I sympathize with that problem, you know.
If anyone's ever seen my like Thorin versus type videos where I pick someone who's like fucked with me and then I address the beef, if you notice, my number one tactic is just use their own words against them in context. That's actually the most powerful tool you have. Rather than you just say, well, they're wrong and they're an idiot and this is morally. If you can actually just show that they actually are a hypocrite, they contradicted themselves, or they said they cared about something that they showed they didn't, then that's actually the most powerful way to do it. So one thing I will say is, since you brought up a very good sort of filter there, Yamato, which is, first of all, they almost certainly couldn't boycott it anymore. Like, if you don't know, people back then, like, think about the combination. You had like Quickshot, who basically was the face of the LEC. You had Shocks, like probably the biggest talent in all of esports, by the way. You had Froscorin, who was known to be incredibly like vocal about like social topic. Like, some of these people aren't even there anymore. And the people who are there, you're right, they've got a massive rotating cast of people who come in for weeks and stuff. So I don't think it's the same world where you can just necessarily do that. So what I'll do instead is, just to make it humorous, I will pick someone who doesn't have those considerations to worry about. So I'll just point out good old former friend of the show, now enemy of the show, now clown idiot of the show, Doublelift. Because Doublelift is one of these people, mate, where in a way I'll never be able to truly hate Doublelift, because if you know him, he really does just talk without thinking. Like, he's not really like a particularly malicious person, because to actually be really malicious, you have to sort of like premeditate it, you know, come up with like, this is how it would fuck with them. He just sort of says whatever comes in his brain, mate. And so unfortunately, that can be hilarious on stream if it's just about something irreverent like the game or an old story about a teammate. But it means he can definitely just put his foot in his mouth when it comes to more important topics he probably should have thought about. So when they announced that Neom deal, and it said in the tweet, Neom joins LEC as main partner for summer, Doublelift on Twitter quote tweeted it and said, human rights violation hype, and put hype in capital letters. Now, he's obviously making fun of them there for working and partnering with people who have human violations rights, according to his words, by the way. I didn't say that. I mean, they do, but that's not my opinion. That's Doublelift's opinion. Now, that looks really bad then, Yamato, if in 2024, Doublelift then has a tweet saying, I'm going to be casting all of EWC and I'm happy to partner with them. And he even then uses the hashtag, which was part of being a co-streamer, I believe, with their product, that you had to use their hashtag as a way of like aggregating all the social data as well. So that just makes you look like a moron, because by that logic, you actually are hyped now about the human rights violations because you just chose to partner with them. And even the best part is, because you're co-streaming, bro, you've partnered with them. In fact, I'd say LEC running an ad is less of a direct interaction than you partnering and casting all of their games on your channel. And the difference is, Yamato, he's not someone who like is like an up-and-coming caster who moved to Berlin and has a rent and has to fucking struggle and try. He's a fucking millionaire. If this guy's invested properly, he'd be set for life. Like, he could pick and choose what he wants to do. So I'll just say that's an example where it's not even that you haven't been careful, you're just being an idiot, mate. Like, why would you bring up the human rights part if later on, when the human rights part hasn't changed, you're just going to work with me? You just look stupid if you do that, mate. That's just an example of someone where I don't know what. Well, it's just Doublelifting it. It's just he doesn't know what's coming out of his mouth next minute, mate. He doesn't know tomorrow.
I do think for most people, it's like I think it's like this generation is, we are very, very, you know, just TikTok brained in a sense. It's like you just want to send a tweet out that bangs, and that's all you care about. It's all about just scoring points because it's just a game, and it's very rare that you come across people that actually like are very thoughtful in the decisions they make and do things by principle. You know, it's very rare, and it's like Doublelift is one of those guys, and I know a lot of other guys too. Like in not that it matters too much, but it's like pro players are often very like spontaneous in their thinking and not so, you know, long-term oriented in terms of how like their decision is going to like impact the life. You know, it's like in terms of like navigating that, in terms of aligning like and really setting your own principles. What kind of tips would you have for people? Because you seem very, very like you've been the same person for a very long time. I like You seem very principled in your approach, you know. Although an asshole so at times, but that's just the spice.
So many people can interpret that way. Here's the thing. First of all, I would never claim I was like this sort of person in terms of having principles in the same way my whole career. I was in certain senses. Like, I'll give you an example. There were certain things I took off from my personal life. Like, people think, I've noticed no one's ever been able to dispute this claim, even though I've said it. It's a very grand claim. But I always say I've never lied in my entire 23, almost 24-year professional career. I've never done a single lie in any piece of media, Twitter, on stream, at events, in my articles, in video. Never, ever in my entire career. Now, I don't know many people who can say that. So that is actually, I would say, the foundational point from which I have built the rest of my principles out. Now, beyond that, like when I first started, for example, I'm not like Richard Lewis. I didn't go to university and study journalism as an actual like degree subject and get taught and mentored by top people. I had to just learn it on the fly. And I learned it actually from people like Richard Lewis, from other journalists that were in the scene. I actually followed real world journalists like Christopher Hitchens, and I read books about what like journalistic ethics are and what's expected of you in terms of professionalism in the field. How do you treat sources? Like, for example, when should you have like an op-ed where you insert your own opinions upon all that? When should you use more neutral language when you're making a news report, for example? It would be inappropriate to insert and editorialize. So some of these things actually do come from my work, believe it or not, Yamato, which is to be excellent as a journalist. I do think you have to have things like you have to have a massive amount of personal integrity, because there are going to be times, we'll probably discuss this later, where you cannot reveal who told you something. And the only thing someone can go off who's a viewer is that they can trust your word. Now, that's not something I've invented, by the way. That's actually been a traditional pillar of journalism for a long time. Now, here's the thing. I certainly understand that in the modern day, a lot of that's gone away. It's a bit like what you said about the TikTok brain influencers. A lot of media now is almost just riding the wave of hype and drama and clicks. And actually, it's clickbait and it's exaggerated and it's disingenuous. And yeah, okay, like part of that's technically true, but you look how it was phrased or what they like took out. They knew something else was in there that made that statement not as bad, but they take it out so that you see the headline, oh my, wow, and then you click on all the buttons. So I will say there's a lot of that in the modern world, but in that sense, I'm also a bit of a throwback. Like if you don't notice, it's the same, by the way, if you ask me about like anime or movies or music, I'm not the guy who knows all the latest stuff that's coming out. Like even if there's someone I'm into as a director, I might not have seen his latest film if it's only just come out a month ago. I like to just exist in any period in time. So I do try to have what I think are like classical virtues as a person. I try to think in history. Like when I watch stuff like Gladiator, mate, I don't just watch it like, oh, it's a cool swords and sorcery. Swords and Sandals epic. I want to watch it and be like, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to stand up for what you believe in, to protect the weak, etc.? I want to think about these concepts because I actually think I wrote a piece about this on Substack today. People don't know, called My Crusade, where essentially I do think people aren't born good and civilized people. I think people are born, look, I'm not going to go on evolution. I don't think they're really born animals. I think we're more than animals. But I do think people are born incredibly raw. And I think you are shaped not only by the people around you, but the sort of cultural milieu that you grow up in. That's like the ocean you swim in. And so I do think that if you want to be a virtuous person, look, in a way, these people who are the LEC talent were trying to do this. They were trying to pick something that they cared about in that moment and say, is there something I can do? Now, in their case, they were going, is there something I can do that doesn't have a giant cost? You know, it's like a reasonable thing. And then I'll do that deal. Right, okay, I'm willing to give up this to get that or to not get that, as it were, depending on which one's more appealing. I would say the reason why it's important in life to figure out your principles is that eventually figures out who you are. Because what's important to you, what actually resonates with you, what you really care about, like if something happens or someone says something, what actually fires you up? What instinctual feeling do you have that that's right or that's wrong? I don't think that all comes internally. I think a lot of that you do pick from outside you, from an option of philosophies and religions and mentor figures and people, by the way, people in your close family circle and friends. You pick the things that you want. And here's the key thing. You pick things you want to be like. You want to be like that person in a heroic way here. You want to be like this person who tells the truth, or maybe you don't, I don't know, maybe you want to be the person who's a trickster and no one ever knows if you're telling the truth. There's different archetypes you can follow. So I would just say the trick I think is you find what you sort of vibe with, what your instinct tells you. Something about that, like something, I'm drawn to that. There's something about, basically, the Zoomer thing, like, he's me for real, for real. When you feel that feeling, you take that value and you use that as a magnet that you're pulled towards with your personality. And if you do that, eventually, that just becomes foundational in your personality. And then, luckily, then you will think and operate on that mode in the world entirely. So, for example, one of the reasons I always say that line, I haven't lied in 23 years, is, bro, now I don't even get the temptation to lie, because why the fuck would I break that record? That's an unbelievable record. Like, that's actually a pretty cool thing to be able to sort of hang your hat on, especially, by the way, bearing in mind in the modern day, I do exposes and investigative journalism. By the way, I had that as a rule when I was just bloody doing, you know, here's why Bjergsen versus fucking Jensen's a 6-star narrative or whatever. Like, in that scenario, it's not even really about truth. So it's actually something where I would say, again, I don't think you're necessarily born as the person you are. I think you have to choose to become that person. So there you go. It's a bit of a philosophical roundabout way. Anything more on that?
No. Like I do think that personal exploration is like so important. That's why I think like that the main thing is that people struggle so hard with doing nothing. And I think while you're doing nothing, a lot comes to you because you allow your mind to kind of give you feedback on what's going on, because we just short circuit permanently. And I think it's so important to be able to do nothing. And I tie that back into once again, like my coaching experience is like working with players. Usually asking pro players to do nothing is like the biggest challenge that they can face, because they're just so used to being engaged with something. So their personal growth that needs to occur through some form of meditation most of the time, or just self-reflection, doesn't occur because they're just so used to being stimulated, you know? It's like asking a pro player to sit and do nothing for 10 minutes is harder than winning a league game for them.
By the way, the reason I will ask this question of you, though, is you have actually changed yourself. Like, I brought this up to you once. When I brought you on one of my shows, I was like, didn't you flame me a few years ago? Well, on Twitter, you said something like spicy towards me over some angle. And here's the thing. If people don't know, you were way spicier on Twitter back in the day. When you were like a pro and becoming an early coach, you were definitely someone who would look in the world and see people and go, what does he know about the game? Or who the fuck are you to talk to someone who's as good as me? I feel like you were a different person back then, but people now know you to be a sort of a very well-rounded sort of, like, you found who you are, right? So what was your growth in that sense?
I do think as well, it's like going into the coaching role. I think the main thing is like understanding the power of silence and also the power of words. Because like if you want to really believe that coaching is like possible, and then you need to be able to see yourself in a role where you can change anything that is like happening around you. And ever since that realization came to me, I became a lot more careful with what I said. Not because like it's like a sense of like a calculated calmness to it, you know. It's like I want to convey a very certain thing, and I think it's just important to be just impeccable with your word, because I think it's you don't want to leave any room for misinterpretation, because I think doing that intentionally also is a sense of dishonesty too, in my mind. And ever since that realization came, it's like when I was a pro back in like season 1, 2, 3, and 4, I was very, very young, you know. Then I was like just snappy, you know, going at it, you know, saying like one thing to just, I love the attention. I loved everything that was going around. I liked the war and the tension and that anxiety that you can like create, and that stress, you know. But I think over time, I think like holding your cards close to your chest and choosing your moments, for me, over time, it just proved to me that it's just better. Just a better methodology. It's like I always say the same sentence. It's like when I always say, it's like no matter what you go through, it's like no matter how people wrong you or whatever, I never take it personal. But I keep ammunition.
Different to me then. Okay, fair enough.
I keep ammunition, you know, because for me nothing is personal. Nothing is ever personal. Because as you said yourself, right? It's like you said yourself. It's like we are shaped by what we go through, right? And sometimes our paths just kind of cross, right?
Okay.
And when that occurs, it happens for many, many reasons. And I can't find myself to ever take that person.
Sure. Now, here's the thing. I will say one last thing on EWC. Even in Riot's own statement, one of the angles they try to provide is the idea that this is going to like support the future of esports. I will say, no matter what you think about the money, that part is true. Like even teams like fucking Gen G, which is one of the best in the world in League, was saying over the last few years, like it's a really hard business to run in. That's one of the reasons why they asked for this. It's like salary cap in Korea and China, for example, so that people didn't just do an arms race to the bottom of everyone having no investment money anymore by paying people $9 million salaries, etc. So I will say, having this tournament, if it's like again just a week and you just fly to Saudi Arabia maybe, and you're playing it and it's not like based on other parts in the season. And essentially, if you don't know, the EWC isn't just like teams win money. It's like the organizations themselves. There's a Club World Cup thing where they win like millions of dollars potentially. So it's actually a way that actually can offset some of the other costs of having a league team if you're one of the big teams that's in their club program. And then similarly for Riot, this is one of the reasons why Monty speculated that in the future, maybe they'll eventually just give like LEC production to the people who do EWC, or maybe they'll have an MSI or something. Is because at that point you could also get the Saudis to cover all the costs, and now you've just cut down some of the expenses for Riot, but you might have a similar tournament. By the way, if you don't know, the people behind EWC are ESL basically, so they're already fantastic at running tournaments. Like they're some of the best in the world. They're probably the Counter-Strike ones that they have from ESL are the best probably in esports for my money. I think they're very well run. Right. Shall we move on to another topic now? Maybe there's something you'd like to say first?
We can. I just wanted to bring something up with you because this is super, super important. Nutrition, Thorin. Nutrition.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Factor meals. Finally, they've arrived in Germany, so I'm feeling blessed. You know, like I was complaining about this on every pod. It's like need to arrive in Germany because I tried it in Sweden, it was amazing. Tried it in America when I was with Dom, super, super amazing. The key thing for me is I don't have time. I wish my day was 30 hours long, 35 hours long, because there's so many things that I miss out on. And when I tried to do the thing that somehow my mother managed to do when I was growing up, was to do groceries, cook, and find everything in a cheap way, find all the different coupons, different sales, like buy the chicken from that store, buy over there, and then piece it together to make a meal that is cohesive and delicious. That is a science. It's not possible anymore. Like I tried to pull this off myself, pull up a recipe, long time search, and then you go to the store, you have to buy like these one-time option, like one-time use items, like this kind of herb and this spice and whatever, and then you do all the shopping after just moving around in the store forever, not finding jack shit, and then you're out. You get home, you need to do the cooking, and then you're doing the cooking, takes forever, and then you eat the meal, takes 5 minutes, you're full, but somehow you look at the time, 3 hours have gone, and you look at your kitchen, it's also a damn mess.
Yes.
Back to meals, bro, you just pop them, a couple of holes through the plastic, pop it in your fridge, not in the fridge, take it out of the fridge, into the microwave, 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in, easy peasy. You're eating a homemade, delicious meal. I'm so surprised, like that it actually tastes good. Like I mentioned this the last time we talked about Factor. It's just every time when I think about frozen meals or like meals that just are prepared and prepped, I always think they're going to be awful. I always think that the flavor is going to be gone. Everything's going to be lost upon you. But it just isn't the case with Factor meals. It's like when I stayed over at my brother's place. My brother, he's like a bodybuilder. He does the nutrition thing, and
they do the meal prep and all that.
He just eats like rice and chicken, very boring meals. And I was like, yo, I need to order Factor meals because I need some flavor in my life. And then he looked over. He's like, yo, I can eat these meals too. It's like, damn. They have keto meals. They have protein plus meals. They have calorie smart meals. Damn, I can eat these meals too. I can make my life more interesting because he basically like measures his rice, some chicken, and he does like this whole like Walter White process in the kitchen. So he was like, damn, look at that. And, there's so many different options too. It's like I ate like chicken, I ate beef. It was just so many different options. I never got bored. Salmon as well was fantastic. I think that's also like just a crucial thing. So you can tailor these meals to make them make sense to you. So in my mind, I'm waiting for my next ones to arrive because now I'm back in Sweden. Back home because I was in Sweden. I'm waiting for them to arrive to just spice up my life. But I'm walking hungry the last couple of days because I just don't have meals and my fiance cooks, but I eat way too much. So I need backup. So to everybody that's listening, eat smart with Factor. Get started today with, of course, Factor Meals. Just go on factormeals.com/LFN50 off and use code LFN50 off to get 50% off your first box and free shipping. That is, of course, LFN50 off at factormeals.com. Just go get it done. Change up your life. Make your life better. Get your gains and just use your time for something that is more important to you than cooking and still eat delicious meals.
Yes. And by the way, I'll just point out one of the reasons why it also does taste 100 times better than frozen meals is never frozen. That's why they just deliver it chilled and then you put it in the fridge. Because I actually do think that is one of the things that like wrecks all the flavor in those foods. Is you can make them hot again, but it feels empty, doesn't it? So yeah, I've had them before. They're a banger. Right, let's get on to the next topic then. So I think we just look, you just watched the LCK and the LPL today. Do you want to do LCK?
Let's do LCK, man.
Right. So here's the thing. I did actually, as people on Twitter will have seen, I did actually have the Nongshim upset. But I only did it because the odds were bonkers. And here's the thing, that wasn't actually like a bet in favor of Nongshim Yamato. That was a bet against Katie Rolster. Like Katie Rolster, unfortunately, we've discussed it on past episodes, but they've got massive holes in their game. Like they're not even in the mix with those other big. Like the joke is D plus is about 5 times better than Katie. It's pathetic how bad Katie is. And at the same time, anyone who saw Nongshim throughout the season, remember they do have like fucking Lehens. They do have Kingen. Like these aren't bad players. By the way, even the Fisher guys looked 100 times better than he did in the LPL. Like Nongshim of the teams that aren't the big names are actually kind of a sleeper. Like they're better than people think. Everyone thinks it should just be from past seasons, what used to be KDF, FearX, etc. Actually, Nongshim have been sort of low-key cooking against some of these squads. And obviously, like I was thinking they could maybe eke out a win. Bro, they clapped this series. This was a sweep. Give me some thoughts on this. This is a pretty big result, mate.
No, just like the thing where we have discussed in the past, it's just like going through the path of resistance is so important. It's like Nongshim had to play a couple of more series. They had to fight their way to get to this KT series. KT was just lying and waiting, there, to play, which I think matters super much. They were cold. Nongshim was hot. They knew what worked, what didn't work, and I think that's a super, super big deal. Coming into this series, I was thinking this is going to be BDD versus the world, basically like how KT has been for this year and also last year. It's like BDD against the world. But BDD didn't have a great series today. It's like the level he needs to be playing at in order for KT to win needs to be like extremely good. And we've seen BDD capable of doing so, but today wasn't the case. I think Fisher had a fantastic series today. Good Aurora game. I think had a solid Yon game as well. I think like the Ari game wasn't the greatest from BDD. The Zeri was kind of off too. Like anything that he got that game was just given to him because Lehens and Fisher decided to like dive mid turret in a very, very strange way. The Aussie game too, there was like moments where like BDD had that aura, like fighting the enemy, hitting them back, stabbing them with Aussie soldiers, and then he kind of just shuffled in maybe like a second too soon, and he needs to just play way too precise to win. It was the same thing last year when BDD practically dragged KT to a 5-game series against T1, and he was so strong in that game. And even just a slight mistake was good, like chunked before like a Nash contest, and then that was just like, oh, lights out. Barrel's going to now make you suffer, BDD, and I think the same story is now, but even worse because KT's players now, even on their best day, I don't see what the upside is. It's like you fill this roster with has-beens, and when they weren't even that hot in the first place. It's like Cuz is a player that plays 2 champions. Dioktam is a player that plays 2 champs. Dioktam has made a career for himself playing like a good in a series against like Genji like 4 years ago on Samira. Like he's just made a career for himself, and he's basically like a way worse version of the LPL player Hope, where he's just like, oh, if he plays maybe Ashe, he can do a good job. And I think just this roster construction is very, very uninteresting, considering where they could have been, right? Like with maybe Pays, the conversations like Lehens maybe joining this team. I think it could have maybe been interesting, but now it's just like, BDD is just going to continue suffering. And on top of that, today just wasn't good. And on Nongshim's side, it is crazy to think about that. It's like, as they're playing good, as Lehens is popping off, King is popping off, you're like, yo, this is World Finals MVP. This is the MSI Finals MVP. It's like they are capable. True. And today they were fucking good. Like they played really, really insane. Like Lehens in the Nautilus game was damn good. The Alistair game was also really, really good.
He's just good on the hook jumps.
Yeah, brilliant. Like really, really good series from them. Like I don't know how much damage they're going to be capable of doing to Damwon because it's just a different game. But I think just having so many games played, being won, coming into KT, I think was just a big difference maker today. And I thought BDD would put up a fight, but it just didn't do it.
Yeah, the problem is, it's just like, I agree with you. When they play well, you do realize how the fuck have they got like actual, like what in theory were top tier Koreans before? It's actually kind of crazy. But then even the like lesser players they've got, like I saw that Fisher guy play when he was on the bad EDG, and he was fucking bad too. I'm telling. Look, I will say it's a Korean playing in LPL where they're all speaking Chinese. I've always thought people don't give that enough credit as it is. People act as though you're just the same player in a different region. Like imagine a fucking European player going and not being able to speak to his teammates. That would be absurd. So I already thought like, is he going to be any good? He looks way better, mate. Like, yeah, like even that Yorn game, he had that like fucking baller, like 3-man knock up on like the fucking top lane. It was fucking sick. And then obviously, look, you already knew if you watched last year's LCK that the Gwu guy had like talent. This guy's got real talent, mate. He's another one where you think about how long the LCK wasn't about ADCs. He's got a pretty good fucking ADC crop now, mate. Like, that's actually one of the stronger positions in the league, I think.
No, for sure. Like considering Gumayushi is benched, it's kind of crazy to think about. And like Teddy coming back, and then you have Lazyfield on the bench after he was playing good. Even on FearX, like Diable is really legit. I'm really enjoying like the AD carries over in Korea. You know, it's like it's crazy to think about in a world where it's like Dalman is performing so well. Aiming is not super interesting as a player because the AD carry pool is just too hype.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, the reason why Yamato was like against D+, because remember, since D+ didn't lose, they get the selection of who they want to pick. And spoiler, they're just going to fucking pick Nongchim. They're not picking whoever wins out of T1 or Handball Life, are they? And in fact, let's just transition to that matchup, right? On paper, this shows how different this bloody season has been, mate. Because the way you would have imagined this season would be going would be Handball Life's, number one team in the world. They're going to be the champions of the LCK. Can T1 hang? Can they prove they're still good? It's the other way around, mate. Handball's just looked fucking ass in most of the series. Like, look, they have hands. They can beat the bad teams. But holy moly, they not look good. Meanwhile, T1 pretty much always look good. Like, by the way, even in their series against Nongchim, like, Nongchim could maybe win, like, part of a fight. But if you ever actually had a proper team fight, T1 just wins, mate. Almost everyone in the team's smurfing as well. You've got like fucking, I mean, Owners at his game. Fakers just look good generally. Carrier, like on his Pike, was another masterclass. If you're a fan of the old Hillsang or Carrier Pike, watch that game. It's a banger. Fucking Smash Guy has been a revelation. Like, the joke is, everyone put all this scrutiny on Doran. It's not even like Doran's playing awesome. It just doesn't matter. It's just like, it's irrelevant to the game. So what do you think of this matchup? Because this is potentially an exciting matchup. It's best of fives, Fearless. Handball Life against T1. What are your expectations?
Honestly, like on paper, T1 should just be straight favorite, like without any like crazy glaze, and no like crazy glaze, energy behind them. It's just T1 just looks straight better. I think Faker and Owner were performing throughout the entire split. Like they've been really insane this split, and now everything else is just falling into place. It's like Kiria's playing better. He's probably like the only player I want to see on Elise, which is like a pick that is being picked so often now. And Smash is just, considering it's going to be best of fives, I do think that, like, just the fact that he has, the Caitlyn, he played the Caitlyn, looks super good, the Ezreal, the Kaiser, the Zeri, he just has guts in the way he plays. And I do think in terms of how T1 needed to kind of restructure their team, they needed that force in the bot lane. And I'm sure that Gumayushi can bounce back and find himself again. But right now, like, this quick solution has been fucking fantastic for T1. It's like they knew with Doran, they're not going to have the Zeus firepower. Doran's going to provide stability and sacrifice for the team. Zeus is like the opposite of that. And Smash is now a player that is capable of taking that. And they become a little bit more of like a lane heavy focused in a sense, not to enable career, but to get advantages in Smash's hands. And in terms of how it's working out now with Smash is damn wonderful. I also think a very crucial detail about T1, and I think also it ties into Korea, is that I don't think that anyone has like a bad enough ego. Like they have the good kind of ego, but not the bad kind of ego where if Gumayushi is needed, let's say in a game 4, game 5, because the draft has changed, these are the type of moments where they can like leverage this. I believe the rules are that you can make substitutions. I would imagine that nothing changes, right? So it's so like
we can do like the Bengi Blank shit of back in the day, sort of, right?
Yeah. So I feel like for the first time ever, we're in a situation where this dream scenario. I always get asked this question in Twitch. It's like, Yamato, do you think that they can do this and then they can change this player for a specific draft? In Fearless, this is the time to do so. Right. So it would be sick if like Gumayushi sails in to a game 4, 5 because like Varus and Jin and like these type of champions are in the pool and kind of like restructures the draft. That could be sick because I don't think Gumayushi, as good of a pro he is, I don't think he's taking the situation laying down. I think he's taking it on the chin and he's putting in the hours. I see a solo queue account. I believe this is a player that is going to be ready to play if necessary. I'm excited to see what rosters are going to be announced, but I imagine they're going to continue with Smash. But T1 come into this with so many weapons.
Yeah, the other thing as well I've got to say about Smash is not only is he like eye test wise looked better, but it actually also turns out he just plays all the meta champions, which sadly was always the biggest knock on Gumayushi. Like, even though people speculate was it the bot lane matchup or was it how they played on the map and all that stuff. No, but you could also just tell he wasn't comfortable on certain champions. There's certain ones that if they became really strong in the meta, that would be when he'd have like 2 months where he looked off or everyone was saying he's the weak spot. Now look, like at Worlds when he had his champions, he looked fucking amazing. He was having gold series where he didn't die ever. Like, he is times he's a very good player. That's why I say I actually low-key hope that maybe it won't be this split because it's just like the LCK Cup into that last stand and you have to win the split to go there. But I do hope that eventually it does get resolved though. I hope that eventually they pick one of them. If it's Smash, it's Smash. Then I hope in the future that Gumayushi can go to another team, mate, because he's still a really good player. He's a fucking world champion. He should play in the LCK at least. He should be on another team. There's plenty of teams could still use him. Or if they decide to go back to him, tell you what, that Smash player you could sell him for a lot of fucking money. I bet a lot of people would want this guy. I mean, think about how many times the LPL comes knocking for a mechanical ADC player. Like, they love people like that. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of big franchises in the LPL have got fucking scuffed ass rosters right now where you don't even recognize half the names. And then you're like, well, 2 of these guys just shit like 3 years ago. Like, there's some huge, gigantic names that used to be champions that are at the bottom of the league over there. So, no, I'm with you. Right, obviously, here's the angle though. So far, to me, I think you have to take T1 to win this because they've not only looked good, but I've never really seen Hanwha ever get close to the potential I was hoping for. And it isn't just the Zika angle. That's certainly an issue. Bro, I'll even say people, like, I'm a massive fan of Viper. For me, he's supposed to be like a generational talent. To me, he's like the Korean Uzi Eye. Like, he's a guy where if you have him on your team, you should probably just play through him all the time, mate. He's a monster. He really can destroy the lane and destroy all the team fights. He sort of cooled off a bit towards the end of last year. I don't know that he's been that great this year either, mate. I don't really know that he's like setting the world alight. What do you think of Hanwha? What's the concern there? Like, can they win this series?
I think based off like nameplates alone, I think to of course just expect nothing from them would be crazy. I just like the nameplates alone, like this, they have enough experience here in terms of what the coaching staff is, in terms of what the players is. It's like, and they're like world champions across the board, you know, with Mowgli and Dandy. I do think that there is a chance that they bounce back. But it's just in terms of like the individual performances, it's just kind of such a warped thing in terms of what we expected from them. Because it's like this should have been the most plug and play change of them all with Zeus coming in, especially after how Zeus played at Worlds. Like, he can weak side, he can play the swap scenarios. Like, Zeus is a very complete player now, and still the engine that is just Delight and Peanut is not taking over games. I do think Peanut is slightly improving. Zeka is still looking off to me. It's like if I compare Zeka's performances in contrast to like all of the other mid laners, it's like bro, I think Yukal had like a better games than him. BDD better games. It's like Faker, Showmaker easily. And it's like Fisher had a slow start, but I wouldn't maybe like you can even go so far to say that Fisher was more important to Nongshim because of the context of the team. But Zeka has been so bad. I hope that he can just revert back into playing comfort. You know, there is room to play Silas. There is room to play Yon. There is room to play Akali.
The champions are in the meta. That's the weird thing, isn't it?
Something's just gotta give here, you know.
If you notice, he doesn't spam them though. If you notice that, he actually doesn't seem like he spams those champions. Like, you know, back in the day, he was really circle bro. He would just pick those 2 champions every time they're up. Now it feels like he just goes to like meta champions.
I don't know if like the approach is like that they are fucking metagaming and they are coasting. Like, I don't know if that's like the approach. I honestly don't know. Like, he's been so disappointed to me, Zeka, and I expect Faker to just be much better than him in this one. Like, if there's any angle at all, I do think it's just Delight and Peanut doing a better job of just driving the game through them. But it's also one of those concerns that we raised at the beginning of the season. It's like, how are they going to fare in, of course, Fearless? I think as things go deeper and Delight can't play, let's say, Rakan and Rel, and he has to play other champions, I do think he becomes a lot weaker than Korea. When Peanut can't play like Vi, Sejuani, Maokai in this direction, also becomes weaker as a player. So if this series goes long, I also favor T1. Like our life, if they want to win, I think they need to do it quick, and they need to fucking do it in like 4 games max. If it goes to a game 5, I would favor T1 almost every time because of just the sheer pool that they are getting into, of course, this matchup. And then the other side of that, of course, is just Zeus can be a wild card in Fearless. Like that's like the only ace up their sleeve is that if they go
plays
deep.
Aurora. He's ridiculous,
Yeah.
isn't he?
I think Zeus has been really, really good for this team, so I feel bad for him that he's coming into this matchup against T1, and his team is on paper weaker. But this is the time to show your feet, Zeus. I want to see something crazy. I want to see thunder.
No, the silly thing is, just because T1 is better than Hanwha Life, it doesn't actually mean Doran's been better than Zeus. I don't even think that's true. I also agree with you. The obvious angle is if you have Viper and you have Zeus, you can also go pretty deep in Fearless there. But I'm with you. Zika historically anyway has been somewhat capped. And then actually, even though they're jungle support, here's the funny thing. Hanwha's jungle and support in a normal meta is unbelievable because if you put them on the Poppy, you put them on the Ricard, they're fucking like the best in the world. They're so good. But you are right. Once they get after their top 2 or 3 champions, they drop heavily. They just become normal players at that point. So you're right. If they can really mix it up in the Fearless, and remember, this is where like the mode of Fearless becomes even more nuts because this is where you could already do some of the things we speculated about before, Yamato. Like if Koma wants to fucking cook, this is where you do a pick where you just pick a fucking Poppy in game 1. It's like, there you go, bitch. How about no Poppy for the series? Like you can just do that, man. Like that's actually a real valid strategy. So I'm actually, this is when I actually get excited to watch the Fearless draft. I want to see 2 real teams that I know potentially could be really good. As you say, nameplates look fantastic. And then I want to see what do these coaches actually draft now, because now we're going to actually have the chess match. Hopefully we're going to see what potential there is in Fearless.
For sure. It's just crazy to think, like you mentioned before, like D Plus is picking Nongshim 100%. It's like Genji is waiting for the next matchup. Like LCK is feeling fantastic, man. Because LPL has like really, it got me starved because we're watching these games that don't fucking matter. But like I'm just a completionist, so I need to see it. You know, I suffer through OMG and Ultra Prime because I want to be able to say at the end of the year, I watched it all, you know?
Well, here's the thing, Yamato. Let's talk a bit about the LPL. But first of all, I'll just tell you, when I think of the LPL, the great memories of the LPL, winning MSI, winning Worlds, obviously, through like EDG, FPX, IG, I think of all the players. I think of Aura. I think of Bin, the way each baller walked out with that jacket, threw it off, picked jacks every bloody game, no matter what, blind. I think of people like Doinby, the mastermind, who's typing like the flash timers as he's busy, somehow like controlling the jungler and the support. And then in later seasons just goes, I think I'll just fuck around and be the MVP too. If you don't know right now, he's still just monster in the lane as well. Like mechanics just, I don't even know how he does it. He must just go, his breaks must just be going into the hyperbolic time chamber. I don't know what this guy's doing. Like who was teaching him these extra abilities? He already won the world championship before he even could lane. It's insane. So when you think of Aura though, I want you to think of great memories that you've experienced, because Aura is the #1 digital picture frame according to Wirecutter. And that's for good reason, because it's so easy to set up and they have different frame options. Now there's actually a bunch of reasons I'll give you personally as to why I actually think this is straight fire. I've told you before, this was a product that actually Monty had already bought himself and was using. And then he basically contacted them, got a sponsorship set up. They sent it to me. And look, here's the thing, I'm not a liar. As I said, I straight up just thought like, do I even care about a picture frame? Like, I'm not the sort of person who go, like, first of all, I don't have an old camera like that. I don't print out, I don't take that roll along and then they get developed and go, oh, that one's, yeah, do you thumb on that one? I don't do that stuff anyways. I'm not really that sort of sentimental person like that. And also in the modern day, even though I have loads of pictures on my phone, I obviously don't go like, print that out and put it on the wall. Like that's like, to me, that doesn't connect in the same way. If I actually think that's where some tech's missing in the modern day. It is kind of cheesy to use a home printer to print out a fucking phone photo and then put it into a frame. That feels weird. So a digital frame, I remember thinking like, how good is it? Because what I didn't realize was obviously a traditional frame has one photo in it. You have to manually replace that. The genius of the digital frame is you can just put a bazillion in there and you can put a whole thing of how quickly it turns, the rotation goes. You can have all different albums, etc. It's super easy to set up. So immediately it made me think, and I actually did buy these as gifts also for other people. It made me think, right, first of all, if you're a gamer, we all tend to be pretty bad socially, staying in contact with people. Give one of these to like your grandma or your mom or something, or your auntie. And then what you can do is, they don't even have to be a super duper tech person. As long as they have Wi-Fi and you set it up for them, get the account, you can then remotely load in the photos of what you're doing. So by the way, for someone like Monty, the reason it's genius is he has grandparents of his kids on either side of the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. So what he does is both sets have the frame, as far as I know, and then he just uploads the latest pictures of his 2 kids into that. And then the idea is the grandma that's in Colorado, she's getting the latest pictures, just like the one that in Korea that's seeing the kid that day. But then when he goes back to America, then the one in Korea is getting all the latest images. So first of all, it's mega for family. I actually think it's a really good way to sort of reconnect with people. Also, if you have a girlfriend or a spouse, I actually think they'll really appreciate it. You could even do this as a Valentine's gift, couldn't you? You could buy one and then preload it with all cool pictures of you. And if you're a man, I'll just give you a tiny bit of advice I've learned in life, which is we do just go, oh, there's a thing. I've taken a picture of it. Yeah, that's it. And then we go on. Women don't do that. They take like 50 shots, like all angles, like the lighting. Mate, they're fucking unbelievable with like all the apps and the light. So the real problem is this, right? I would say don't just put random pictures in there. Pick ones that like the lighting looks good. She isn't doing like you haven't caught her after she came out the shower or something. Pick the ones that look cool, that have a romantic aspect. I'll tell you what, that will go a long way. You might not think it's a big deal. That they will really appreciate the gesture. And also, lastly, you can just remind yourself of great times. Maybe you have yourself graduating or playing a sport, or maybe you have a LAN party with your friends that you don't see anymore. You put that in there. It's got so many features, by the way. It's super easy to set up. It takes about 2 minutes. They have at the moment free unlimited storage. So you can just add unlimited photos and videos and invite as many people as you want, by the way, to access the frame. So you can just go on, like a whole bunch of people can upload images to it. There's no hidden fees or subscriptions. It can also actually play video up to 30 seconds, not just even photos. I actually found this out recently. You have complete control over the frame. It's not like people are going to like hack into it and start doing whatever they want, etc. It's really securely set up, which is like a key aspect compared to other competitors in the market, which are a little bit easier to get into. And then also, I'll just throw this out there. It's also got an aspect where it has like a light sensitive component. So for example, you can just set it that when it gets dark at night, the frame just turns off. So it's not like while you're sleeping, you know, like you wake up and you just see like an image flashing past everything. No, you can take it, it just automatically will go off. It's actually, for real, this is why I think it's a great gift to like older people, for example, as well. It's so easy to set up and then it just works at that point. So right now, you can save on the perfect gift that keeps on giving by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, our listeners at LFN can get $20 off their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's the one that me and Monty have. With the code, you guessed it, summoning, easy to spell. It's the first word of Summoning Insight. That's auraframes.com, auraframes.com. Promo code summoning. Support the show by mentioning us at the checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Crucially, this code works in the US, Canada and the UK. So if you're in any of those countries, it's mainly the Anglosphere that watches this show, then pick one up. I actually think it's an awesome one. By the way, if you're a real nerd, you can also just put all your favorite pro players in there and have like, you know, Kerry doing a cheeky smile or, you know, whatever. You pick who your favorite player is. You can put them in there as well. Whatever memory you want to capture. So yes, now then, speaking of memories, also, obviously, if you don't like a photo, you can delete it. I wish I could delete from my brain, Yamato, the series you made me sit through today of OMG versus Ultra Prime, because I'll tell you what, bro, that was like some sort of war crime. I feel like I'm in Guantanamo Bay being waterboarded there or something, bro. Mate, I was begging for a way out of that game for, please, please. I felt like I was in Alcatraz or something, homie. I'm never going to see the light of day again. And I remember thinking, I don't even want to talk about any of this shit on the show. This is garbage. Like, if people don't know, it even probably should have just been 3-1, but like, they fucked up and this series was fucking this was some rough team fighting. Give me some thoughts on this series. What are we saying on this one?
This was so damn ugly, bro. It's just so ugly. It's everything is such an unforced error, and it's just crazy to think about it. This is like the last game, the last series of the winter split 100% because both teams are 0-2. There wasn't any factor of now the pressure's off, let's perform. There was no desire to prove something. There was no desire to be like, I'm gonna think about my job security here. I'm going to play my heart out here. There was nothing because it was just pure dirt. Like every team that took Atakan today, it was a net negative.
Yes.
It was just like when
it's the winter fights they lose, doesn't it?
It was just so crazy. It's like the situations they were in. Like I remember, like in this, I think it was in the last game. It's like, the enemy team has Atakan. I think it was OMG. They have Atakan. They dive and they really, really screw up. And Atakan is gone. And for some reason, they did like Ultra Prime is like, okay, it's our time to do Nash. It's like, no, it's respawn. They're coming. They just do Nash with no HP. They get ace there. Nash is gone. And I'm like, what was this? Just this isolated sequence that just occurred. It was just many, many moments that like basically, if you put that shit on TikTok, it will bang right away because it's just like it shouldn't happen ever again. It just shouldn't happen ever again. It was like the base race type, not the base race, but it was like the ending approach that Moham somehow saved with Rakan, where he just got four-man Ws twice, and then Kaiser just ults in. I couldn't believe what was happening. It was impossible to predict. Because like always, you know, I have these degen gamblers that come into my Twitch. I was like, Yamato, what do you think about this game today? Do you think Omjig can win from here? And I'm like, bro, like I can give you the truth about the game state, but it won't matter. Like, oh, Camille should be split pushing here with the hull breaker. And then she should have advantage. You just set up the wave so that it hits the turret when the dragon spawns, and it will put the enemy team in a tough position where they have to decide. Blah, 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 blah. But none of that matters, bro. Instead, it's like, oh, Zinzao got caught. He is doing enemy wolves for some reason. He died. And now all of a sudden they gave up soul. And now everything changed. It's just dumb shit through and through. But it's fun. It reminds me of Nirvana of Summer Split, where we just had the shit teams play against each other. It is a bit of a classic for me, so I enjoyed it.
I'm with you. I thought because like these are the teams that are going to be irrelevant. Like you say, you're just fighting for your job, aren't you? Like, hey, coach, I'm still good. This was like instead they all just went, fuck it, who cares? And they just sent it. Every person just sent it the whole time. It was crazy. Obviously, here's the thing. We did have some good teams play. Like, even though, if people don't know, FPX is an irrelevant team at this point in time. They're not good. The one story I don't want to bring up is this. I referenced it earlier in the joke on the Aura Frames one. Bro, Doinby is just some sort of like fucking... He's going to be like, I actually think he's probably underrated in history at this point, mate. Like, he's just so fucking good at the game. Like, I've never seen a player who did it all at the same time. Like I said, he used to be like the faker Zhao, I'm the captain of the brains, and, you know, I sync with the support and the job. He does that, but then he's also a lane monster, can play all the fucking champions. And, like, he's actually just cracked out of his mind. He's like, remember, bear in mind, he's a Korean that's played his whole career in the LPL. He's just one of the best players ever. I know this wasn't the greatest series to watch, but, mate, how has this guy had all that time off and he's come back? This is the dream when someone comes back that they don't even lose a beat. They're just right back to being like the best, basically.
I don't know. The Doinby is just confidence in motion, bro. Like I'm so pissed, you know, because Dom picked the NIP side, and I was like, yo, IG is gonna be good, bro. Doinby's gonna be washed, bro. He didn't play pro for 2.5 years. I don't know how long he's been gone, you know. Coaching shit teams, you know. It's like, come on, man, come on, Dom, you're crazy. Leave this guy, bro. Did you know what he did on social media about JJ and shit? Have you seen his games? Have you seen his ceiling? Have you seen his floor? You know, have you seen his floor, bro? He's fucking limbo dancing with the devil. Fuck this team. Fuck Aki, what he did to Rookie last year. He's like, nah, man, these guys are gonna be good. I'm like, no, IG's gonna fuck them up, and I'm so wrong. I'm so fucking wrong. IG is so trash. It's beyond belief. And then on NIP side, you know, like they're grooving, bro. They're grooving. Like everything is working. Shanji looks in good form too. Like he's no longer just a Cassante fucking Rumble OTP. Like he's super dangerous on those champions, but he still has like a mean Renekton. He can play. He kind of, you know, plays along with the meta. His ambassador good too. I think this is a roster, you know, in the chaos that is LPL right now. Like, I think that they can be dangerous. You know, the only knock at them, right, if anything, is the fact that now in hindsight, this group is pretty ass. Like, this group is pretty ass in hindsight. So it will be interesting to see how they will fare against, like, decent competition. But all in all, like NIP, I don't think they could have hoped for more. I think this is just like a fantastic start. And Doinby, as you said, bro, he's just he's just confidence in motion. Just has so much swag the way he plays Rise. I fucking love watching him.
Yes. No, that's the obvious problem is we can't really like sort of shadow box them against the top teams. Like it's hard to know how it'll even work, and obviously the fearless component. But I'm super hyped. Like they're one of those teams where I could see them like it, and a lot of it is just Doinby, but like fucking hell, it works, bro. When it works, it works. This guy could take them deep. Like if you look at how dodgy the rest of the like some of the top teams are, this could be like a top 3 team. They could be in the mix for this playoffs. Right. There was obviously the actual good game was obviously the Weibo JDG series. Right, give me some thoughts on this one, because these are both teams that I feel like, on paper, you look at the names, you're like, this should be hype as fuck. The problem is they both had little slip-ups. Like, JDG started the split kind of dodgy. You were like, what the fuck's going on? Like, obviously, they were integrating pairs, etc. Then you go over and you look at the Weibo side. Look, my joke when I even saw the names is they're all fucking crazy inters, but there's also a lot of fucking champions and, like, top players, and you can imagine a game where it's the LPL, dude. What if they all just actually go in and fucking use their hands? Surely they could do some crazy. So we had this 5-game series. What did you think of it? Did it live up to the billing?
Yeah, I think it was. I expect the Weibo to just be stronger based off of what they showed, because JDG looked so like uncoordinated against all OMG, like that was a series that went 5 games. So we watched OMG play today. Like these guys are not good. They're not good. JDG, it's like in terms of the names that they put together, like there is for sure like some some time in terms of what they need in order to like integrate with one another, like Pace moving to LPL. It's like they have like language barriers, CV Max also moving over to LPL. Like I gave them like a grace period. And I thought that, in terms of the timing of this particular matchup, I did think that Weibo would just do better because like Tian is very, very plug and play. And, the majority of the roster kind of remained the same with Lightbreed and of course Zhao Hu. And then with the addition of Hang, who actually looked pretty decent in the series. Because I wasn't super optimistic about this pickup because I did think Chris was like important in Weibo's good series. But Weibo, it's like they show very, very high class level setups and like fights and also like how they take tier 2s and they were like out macroing JGG in a lot of moments. But then you have like the classic Weibo as well, where for example, like in game 2, they're like drafting like Lucian, Pyke. It's like, what the fuck are we doing, bro?
It's in that one too.
It's the year of 2025. Like, what are we doing here? And this is like just such a Weibo classic. Like, did the same shit at Worlds last year, where like, I get Yahoo legendary Lucian and all, but let's move on. Like, it's not the solo laner anymore. And it happened where they like dropped the game against, what was it? Like they dropped the game against Fnatic, was it? When they had like that big lead that they kind of threw. It's like Weibo is kind of like a mixed bag. I do think that Tian looks good on this team, but I think for JDG's side is just once again it's like that game 5 when I look at how fucking Scout is playing. It's like this guy is like for me one of the most underrated players because nobody watches like the LPL regular seasons. It's like Scout in LPL regular season does games that could be like legacy games. For other players. And that game 5, I just recommend anyone to just rewatch it because that was like so damn good. And finally in that game 5 too, we finally also got to see like Pace play well because he did look very, very sloppy in this series. I think Light just looked way better than him. It's like when I think of Pace, the archetype of a player that he is, I never thought that he would like fit in how chaotic LPL can be. It just seems like he wants everything to be structured and he doesn't want to be like in situations where he's forced to execute like very, very high level shit. And that's what LPL is. It's like you are put in situations where you either do a highlight reel or you look like shit. And if I compare it to how LCK was going in terms of the key moments where Pace needed to perform, like those chaotic, high intensive mechanical moments, those are the moments where I think all the Pace naysayers remember the most. It's like lack of execution in big team fights. And you could see that, he's not keeping up with the pacing of everything that is going on. So I hope over time that he's going to do better and better. But for me, just the main thing is just Scout is just too fucking good at the game. What did you think about the series?
I mean, I have to say the Weibo was actually better than I expected. Like one of the aspects about their team is like, I mean, by the way, I'm sure they're one of the teams you were thinking of when you mentioned earlier that there's only one player you want to play support Elise. Bro, there are some criminal Elises that are being played. Like this was not a good one either. So I do think the problem with Weibo is they do have a team where you look at their roster and you're like, look, all these pieces in theory have been good at different times over the last couple of years, but how's it going to fit together? Like, it's such a weird mix of players. Like, I'm with you on the Tian one. For me, the two players that you can rely on, believe it or not, people who watch international play aren't going to believe it is Tian and Light, actually. Light's just been really consistently good the last year or so, maybe in the last year and a half. Tian, actually, I feel like, sadly, he's just had too many times. He wasn't even bad at this Worlds, but he's just had too many Worlds where he looked like a fraud to Westerners that they think I'm like trolling when I say he's one of the best junglers ever. Like, bro, there is real genius in some of the pathing he does in the LPL. Like, in the LPL, mate, it's just his office. I don't know how he's another player where he just has some unbelievable regular seasons where he just gets his shit together. And then the interesting part for me, though, is I agree on the JDG side. Scout is just one of the most reliable, like, floor raiser superstars ever. Like, you can put him seemingly on any team with any set of players and they'll be like a playoff team. They'll be relevant. They'll be in the mix and he can carry games. But a difference is he used to have Light in the last years when he was on LNG. And boy, it is different having Pace, mate. Like Pace is finding out for himself the hard way. Like not only are you now...
He had Gala, but the point still stands. Sorry.
Yeah, so, well, it's past years I'm thinking of Light anyway, actually. Yeah, true, actually. Oh, it used to be on Weibo, actually. Yeah, never mind that one. It was light, but it was a long time ago for that one. You're right. It was actually Gala I'm thinking of. Basically, it is different when you have Scout and a reliable ADC, though. The difference is, Pays, for me, what he still has to prove to me in the LPL, he has to actually prove he is a true carry, AD carry, that you can play through, put the whole comp through. By the way, the LPL is notorious for that. And then carry the game off it. Because I'll tell you what, another reason why, if you're Pays, you have to prove that to me. It's because, mate, as you saw in this series, I've always thought another underrated player in the LPL is Ale. I've always thought he's never quite had the same name value as some of the joke is even Zika got more name value than him because he had the run against JDG at like 2 years ago. The Ale guy's just been quietly simmering the whole time behind the bins, the 369s, the shy, after that, he's it. Like, he has to... By the way, the joke in this one is he's playing against Breathe, who people know from international player. I think he's better than Breathe. I think they're both good players, but the difference is Breathe is way more champion limited. I've always thought the Ale guy has a real carry sort of vibe to his game, so I needed to see what is the identity of JDG going to be. You can do a lot with Scout, I'll give you that, but you've got to figure this out. Like, they don't have the same thing as T1. It's kind of like in T1, everyone knows what their job is now, mate. It's just let's get the champions and let's play the game. I think in JDG, is still just all over the place. And that is where, if you add in the coach is CV Max, bruh, are you kidding me? That is the craziest coach of all time. Like, that's not the coach who goes like, let's band-aid and just do this. It's the coach like, hey, Chovy, ever thought about tanks mid? Like, well, why the fuck would I? Yeah, exactly. CV Max's whole game is that meme from years ago, like, that's his whole game, mate. Because here's the thing, sometimes it is genius, sometimes it's like, what was he fucking thinking? That's like, I still think they're a mess, mate. The difference is, Weibo, I don't think has as good players, but they have an identity. They have players you can rely on. There's too much of the scout show is my problem for JDG. Look, I love watching it. In a fucked up way, I actually like watching great players play on scuffed teams because they have to be amazing. He had to do the same thing on LNG. Like, he had to just be the best player in the league for them to have a chance to win. The problem with that is, though, it's going to be hard to win the LPL doing that.
For sure.
Like, it's been some really messy series, as you're talking about, mate.
I just to add, like, I agree. Like, Ale, this series was insane. Like, I think it was a big reason why, my perception changed, because I thought Weibo would just look better in this one, but Ale was really, really good. And I also, like, in terms of, like, if anyone out there that doesn't watch LPL, like, just watch Tian in game 3, like what he did on Zinzao. It was like level 2 gank into bot, broke the bot lane matchup where his team is playing like Caitlyn Braum into Nico, and then he goes around, kills mid as well, kills scout, and then he kills top again and kills bot again, and his enemy Pantheon barely finishes clear. Like, he just did like some crazy pathing, landed all the ganks, and that's like a Tian classic. Like, if you watch LPL, you've seen so many of those games, and he just won the game after 5 minutes. Tian is a damn legend. I feel bad because every time when the internationals come around, especially like last year, like, oh, Tian is a choker. Haha. I was like, bro, Tian was the only guy who didn't choke. Like, when it came to these internationals, it's like I remember like that MSI when they played against the BO5 against G2 when they lost. And then it's like Jakob and Mako just like get the two killed at minute fucking 2. And then right away it's like, Tian at the international. So, bro, he didn't even finish his clear. Like, let him finish his camps. He's hitting wolves. Like, come on. Like, I'm just fighting the narratives, you know. Like, that's what I like. It's like, on stream, I want history to be, you know, correct. You know, I think it's sacred. And I think Tian has been like really good the last couple of years. But Xiaohu and Tian, that's just not a pairing that makes sense to me, bro. Xiaohu needs Tarzan, Kanavi, Lucid. You know, he needs someone like this, you know.
No, I'm with you. I also think the problem is that's in some way a part of the reason why. If people don't know, Tian is like, I think the person who won the most or was tied for the most fucking Dade awards ever. Which, look, you have to be really good to win those. But people don't realise he's had years where he was appalling at national. He's had years where he's really good too. He's been actually some of the best players at Worlds. Like, I actually do think if you ever go back and watch that FPX run, he was fucking unreal too, mate. His Lee Sin was cracked out this world. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And he's actually another player that's only gotten better since then. In fact, I've always said the key thing that sort of made it make sense for me with Tian is people have said that over the years he's had like wrist issues or something like that. Bro, it sort of looks like that because it looks to me like when his feel for the game is on, he's fucking unbelievable in the game. He's one of those junglers that, like, I can tell he's not just going off protocols. He's going off like intuition of where to go. But I'll tell you what, mate, if you're fucking wrist certain and he is a mechanical player, like, you're going to have a hard time with that, mate. That's gonna be a nightmare. That's a rough one right there. And if you notice, Chinese junglers probably just fight all the time. They all seem to destroy their wrists, like MLXG. They all have to fucking retire young. So I hope Tian stays in the game. Neither of these teams win in the LPL, though. I'm telling you that. Forget about that. Forget about that, bro. Forget about that.
Yeah, so I guess everything else is covered, right? The LPL. It's like anyone's legend, smoke to the lead, drop one game because they drafted like fucking niddly and all that usual stuff. But
what we need is this for real. If you think about the way the split's gone so far, right? Because the IG hype's kind of died, these teams are looking at the real match everyone wants to see is we want to see BLG against anyone's legend. And then we're going to find out, is BLG actually the best team in the world? Is anyone's legend actually going to like contend for the title? That's when it can get spicy. And also, I always thought like the craziest region should eventually be LPL if it's Fearless Draft. Like as you already saw in some of these. Holy shit, some of the comps they're having to go to at the end. I mean, I will say, again, you did have CV Max, so maybe you cook a little bit extra, but boys, I want to see, because this isn't the, like, if you think about some of the past years, I actually always thought the strength of that JDG super team was just having the same picks all the time. You would just try and get the exact same picks on a 369 and onto fucking missing. You just go with like the obvious ones. You'd be cynical about the draft. You can't do that now. You've got to have that depth. And also, certain styles of playing, this is probably the most underrated part, I think, of Fearless, because we haven't seen that many BO5s yet, Yamato. The part people haven't considered yet is this. Bro, if you're playing something in a game 5, it's very unlikely you could ever actually predict what that comp will be, because it's based on what the opponent's picked as well and what's already gone in the series. So that actually makes certain playing styles are just going to be a lot harder to execute. Like, I think you can have a lot of teams that just default to normal team fighting, mate, and just go to the dragons and just use sort of the objective buttons as I say in the game. Like, it's going to be a lot harder to pull off like super nuanced like wave push and all. There's some hard comps to run now, mate.
no, for sure. I think also like on the LPL side, like a layer that is good for them is that their format, well, although it has like many flaws, I would prefer like a GSL group format, so we wouldn't have like these fucking dumbass 0-2-0-2
Sure.
matches. But the fact that they've been playing best of 5s the entire time, like at least from a coach's perspective, that would feel so freeing, because your entire practice process can just be best of 5s. So like, so you have repetitions of like these scrim sets going to 5 games and having 40 champions out, and you can like adjust to it. And the perfect segue to the LEC is like, these guys have been playing BO1s for 3 weeks straight, that are super, super important for your seeding and your qualification. And you're not going to cater your like practice process to fully commit to Fearless. It just doesn't make any sense. And now they're playing Fearless so much later than everybody else, which is just crazy to think about. It's like, oh, we have Fearless, but we're playing BO1s. So go fuck yourself.
Yes. If people don't know, it is the only major region that still uses BO1. Even the other regions are the BO3s, and you get this component in. Yeah, so actually, we have no idea if anyone's even any good in LEC yet. We've just been playing normal League of Legends so far. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. Right, okay. What about fuck it, let's do LTA. You watch the LTA matches, right?
Yeah.
Right, there's a few angles here. So first things first is, what a fucking weird ass format, Yamato. Because when I didn't check this initially. So I was watching the matches, you know, the BO3s, and then I saw, oh, hype. Now you have the big matchups. And it's like, that's a BO1. Like, but why? But why though? I still don't understand why. Like, I don't. Because I was hyped for those games. And by the way, both games left you wanting more. Both games you were like, oh, fucking load that up again. What the fuck? How did TL lose? Like, well, we'll get into that. Then the other one, you were like, oh my god, FlyQuest. What the fuck's going on? But then it was just a tease. It was a fucking tease before the playoffs. And I'll just throw this out there. If you quickly look at the actual bracket where it's the cross-region play of the South versus the North, bro. Right now, I can't even believe I'm saying these words out loud. As of right now, the two best teams probably are 100 Thieves and FlyQuest on the same side of the bracket. That looks fucking spicy. So let's rewind a little bit. I want to know, first of all, some of your thoughts on FlyQuest. Because, bro, I will say, you know what's funny? I actually thought when Bwipo joined the Team Liquid Super team, he actually had like he was a bit too coin flip. He had games he was good, he had games he were bad, he was disconnected. And you could also tell he was being a little bit less sort of sacrificial than he was on teams like Fnatic. It looked like maybe he wanted to have more say in his picks and how he played. Bro, he's finally in these last few years really settled into playing like an LCS LTA player. The amount of the Bwipo bullshit that he'd normally do in solo queue that he can do in LCS games is fire. Like that fucking whatever it was, like fucking Garen kill was hilarious. Like, bro, that's actually just some like tech for people who haven't played against Garen where he just bait them in like that. That's actually hilarious. And also, by the way, he actually has mad aura himself now. He has fucking swag. If people don't know, I used to like watching him anyway in Fnatic. I never was a big hater, but I'm a fan of watching him play the LTA. I enjoy watching this play. He makes it interesting every time. Even in lane, you don't have those boring handshake. He's always going for kill pressure and sometimes the joke is he goes for kill pressure when he doesn't have the kill pressure and he gets killed. But it's always interesting in a Bwipo game, Yamato. It's always interesting.
100%. Like that series against Dignitas, it was a bit of a flex. Like that Swain game, like that Swain looked extremely powerful. Like, because Dignitas had a pretty solid draft. Like they
Yeah,
had like
yeah.
all the modern champs in Aurora and Skarner rework, who obviously got nerfed and something that Flag was like playing against, but still, like they prepared usually the Ivan into it, and in the end they played Xin Zhao, which isn't like some crazy counter against Skarner. And his Swain game was fantastic, like his Garen game as well. It's like blind pick Garen. Like what what on earth are we doing playing against Camille? Like that's suffering. And he figured out a way to just style on what's his name, Sir Titty. I don't, never know how to say this guy's name.
It doesn't matter right now. When he wins some games, we'll figure it out. And also, by the way, playing Garen in that matchup, that is fucking pod racing, Yamato Cannon. This guy fucking likes the high stakes games. Holy shit.
It was a fun series, you know. Like in terms of the comparison, it's like the FlagQuest series that they played against C9, because I don't remember us talking about it too much, but like in that series, it's so fun now to scrutinize FlagQuest because of the whole, we want a public scrims, we're the best team in the region, we want to show our strats. It's like, what would happen if these guys lose? It's like, will they still want to scrim publicly? Is that real? Do you still want to do that if you're losing? Will things change if you're losing? Like it's always fun to watch, because looking at that series against C9, I think the main loss that they had there was just strategic. It's like a lot of the things that they were doing were quite like outdated almost. It's like they had like that Urgot Ivan, and they were just drafting things pretty much what we saw last year. I don't know if this was like by design or by intent, or it's just something that they've basically just reached the same conclusions again. But I do think that allowed C9 to pick up the victory against it, because all in all, I still think FlagQuest, in terms of their decision making, how they swap, and how they like play the map and accrue gold and just play on tempo, I think that they are way better than anybody else in this league. Way better. Like I think they're way better than C9. I think they're also better than Team Liquid, because there was like many moments where Team Liquid were in a dominant spot after like FlagQuest just ran down kills, but FlagQuest can just stabilize the game and figure that game out through macro. It's like I keep bringing this up, but I'm going to bring it up again because it is the year of the youth. It is the year of the youth. I do think that's a big benefit for like the C9 players, because mechanically this is still a very stacked roster, and I like C9's progression. I think they can be very competitive. On the signs of like Team Liquid versus FlagQuest, it's like Team Liquid, bro. Like this fucking Umti just pisses me off, man. This guy just pisses me off. He just makes me so damn mad. And there was this tweet that came up. What was that tweet? Let me scroll up, because I think
just said like there was only a BL3 or something, and the sample size wasn't enough or something. Which is like, bro, we
had the whole last year, bro. Like, come on, man.
True.
Like we had Worlds last year, EWC last year, MSI last year. It's like we don't fucking forget this shit, bro. We watched. It's like where's? It's like he's talking about. It's like I can be bad today, but tomorrow I can be the best in the world. It's like you've never been the best in the world, bro.
Well, the joke there is only if tomorrow there's no game scheduled. Problem is we need you today, bro. We need you on the game day, exactly. So good being great when you fucking aunties watching and going, oh, well done. Because I will say, listen, if you do a crazy int, we're obviously going to make fun of you. I'll tell you who was really happy with it. This is going to blow your mind, Yamato. I'll tell you who was really happy with Umti's performance in that game. APA. Because now no one's talking about APA doing fucking shuffles into nothing. Like, what? Like, first of all, he was playing ass anyway, and he's had a really hard time generally. But it's right. That Skarner ult is fucking criminal. If you don't know, guys, he dragged the support Nico into his team, causing it to get almost a perfect pop blossom off like that. Like he actually made the pop blossom that like Knight used to dream of doing in the LPL. He just like gave it to him like, hey, come into my team. Like that, it's so crazy. It's so fucking nuts, bro. It's actually one of the worst like ints I've seen in a while, mate. That's so bad.
It's so bad, because like everyone sees it. Like Ozzy is ulting him away. Like Ozzy read it, you know. It's like APA did a good play on Ozzy finally. But no, like, that game was so winnable because FlagQuest were.
I thought they were going to win it. It looked like they were going to win it.
Yeah. The position was like looking really good. Yeah. They had like champions. Like the Casio didn't really like pay off. Like Casio is like the quad special with the Q Max with the Deathfire Torch into Azir that he played like earlier in the season. But it's like the game state looked super fine. They had like good champions that we can recognize all the players on, like a tank, like a Xante, a very simple champion for Umti to play, I thought. But turns out it wasn't, you know, in this particular game. But it's like, it just seems like they give up so many opportunities. It's like in my mind, the more and more I think about it, is just like Reignover and Spawn, it's like what you guys managed to accomplish last year. It's like the more and more that is being played out now, it makes the
so
story of
impressive as a
what they made.
coach,
It's
right?
just
Yeah.
brilliant. Because they
Yeah.
managed to mask all of their flaws. They
Yes.
were pushing so
Yeah.
heavily on the lane swap meta. They had such a clear identity for each and single player. And the rookies were getting better. Yeon is a damn stud when it comes to like playing the game now. And it's like it's all that you can ask and demand of from coaching staff. And now with the meta shifting, or we see APA, like the main question is like how he's going to change and be in different metas. Like his Azir looks trash, you know, it looks very, very trash. Still early on in the season, and maybe Spawn and Reignover and now Swiffer can do some more magic. But now while I'm zooming out, I'm like, damn, Spawn and Reignover, what you guys cooked last year was insane.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you as well. The genius of that squad and where you know it's well coached is you're right. The way they would do their comps and the way their macro played out, it somehow made most players look like they didn't have a weakness. Like even, I guess people playing Flame don't be a bit, but obviously APA got completely covered. Actually, everyone was ready to crown him like one of the new stars of the LCS. You and I actually do think has continued on and been really good. But you think, by the way, Impact had like one of the best splits of his entire career. Like, it was crazy. Yeah, like they really were that far from having a much, much better year than they did. The problem now is though, LTA now is way more scuffed. Like you just see in these games. I agree with you, mate. The way that game was going, it's like, there was about 4 times you thought it doesn't matter that like APA's missed that shot. They're gonna win the game, bro. Like they're getting the fucking objectives. Like the FlyQuest players are willing to just send it in those fights all the time. That's what makes it. FlyQuest seemed super horny to try and get skirmishes going here, bro. Like they just take fights when there's like 2 of them. It was really crazy. I mean, Bwipo, by the way, in this game, he couldn't fucking stop going in. He couldn't. He just decided he was just sending it every time. He was just going in all the time. I'm not sure I was feeling that one. You know?
It was just his champ had too many dashes, bro. It's just he was drifting, you know. It was, but in the end, it's like he found good opportunities, you know. It's like he found the fight that made sense. It's like from Team Liquid side, it's like that game deciding fight. They were just so split and got cut off, and it started in such an unforced way. It just seems like such a regression from where they left off last year. Because like last year at the World Champions, the big issue was just like team fight execution. It's like they really botched the fights, but you knew like macro-wise that they knew where to be, they knew which waves to push, and like Core JJ and Impact in terms of like understanding when they can get dove, when they should dive, how to move on the map, super good. But even that element is now lost, and I think Team Liquid is just struggling because in order to find new peaks, you need to break everything down. And now they've broken everything down, and you can see like all the flaws of these players. And I don't know how these guys are going to rise again. I think in terms of how Winter Split is, of course, now with most, like all of the teams have to fly over to Brazil and practice in new environments. That's like really like unique. Like I don't, there's already other challenges. Like the split is going to last for 2 more weeks. You're not going to be able to change that much. It's like the form you brought in the last week is the form that you are bringing now too, unless of course I don't know, you're gonna have some food poisoning or some shit because you know they're eating home cooked meals from your chef at your facility. You know, I like adjusting to that doesn't give you a lot of room to improve. So I'm very worried for Team Liquid. I think like C9, FlyQuest, look like front runners, Hunter Thieves as well, of course, with FBI. Like I don't think Team Liquid is really in the conversation with these other 3.
Bro, that's the craziest part. We'll get to 100 Thieves in a minute. It's not just like even like FlyQuest's better. Okay, that's acceptable. People thought that at the end of the year. Okay, maybe you think, I don't know, maybe Cloud9's roster. Bro, there's actually a world for real right now where Team Liquid could be the 4th best team. Which is insane because they kept the same players, same coaching staff. Like everything should be there. It's not even like they're all bad. Like I said, the young guy is actually pretty good still. It's just something. They're not the same team before. By the way, they can't close out the games the same way. The macro isn't as good. Individual players just playing badly. And the umpty one, right? Here's the other thing, umpty mate. You've made that tweet. You've already fucked up there because now people already were watching to see if you hinted. Now you've essentially sort of done like, no, honest, I won't do it again. Like, if you do it again, mate. If you do it again, it's going to get fucking bad. And if you do it, by the way, against an LTA South team when nobody in North America knows these players, fucking hell, mate, it's going to get bad. There's going to be some hate. You are going to be public enemy number 1 in Team Liquid land. I'll tell you that much. What about Cloud9 then? Let's talk about them a bit. Because, bro, this should have been a banger on paper. 100 Thieves versus Cloud9. Mate, what the fuck was Cloud9 doing in this game? There's another example of a team where they wanted to have loads of fights, but they would do fights when there's like 2 people, or like, there was that one even where Thanatos just like went in on fucking Renekton and Blab hadn't even got on the corner, bro. I can't tell whether like they didn't comment or whatever. Like there was so many bad fights in this game. Like 100 Thieves ate them up, mate. They was fucking eating them for dinner in these fights.
Yeah, it was just so scrappy, so scrappy. I don't know. It's like one of those things. It's like I've been in situations where I've played tiebreakers after a long day.
Right.
And we just didn't look like ourselves. Like there was one day, like when we had we played against Vitality, the winner, we would go to playoffs. It was 2022 in summer. And then we had like 2 tiebreakers and we had to play against, I believe, like Misfits. And we just drooled on ourselves. Like we played so terrible.
Yeah.
As Humanoid just looked at me, he's like, bro, I'm so fucking tired. Like I am in bed at this hour, playing like at 11, 12 in the night.
Right.
And so it's like, considering it's like a B1, I feel like I can be a little bit more graceful. But I do think like C9, 100 Thieves, if I could see this matchup in like a longer series, I think that they have similar strengths in the sense that I think that there's just like a lot of good mechanical talent here. Like I was hoping that the team fights would give us more, but after just 100 Thieves got in good positions, kind of just BO1, it is what it is. So I'm not judging it too hard, but I'm kind of hoping that we see this matchup again because I think this has a lot more to offer. That's a weird thing. What you mentioned at the beginning of the segment, it's like we finally got the matchup that we wanted. It's like we got C9 versus Blackers, which was cool, right? But then we got BO1 that barely mattered because I imagine that all LDA North teams are going to win. And that's saying that without watching LTA South.
Sure.
Like, they should win. Like this should just be an LTA North sweep. And then finally we get the matchup that we wanted. So I think there's some fine tuning to be done about all these fucking formats that we have going on all over the world, man, now in winter.
I've got to say as well, Cloud9 still has one of the obvious fundamental problems. They still just look like the shot call's non-existent, bro. Like, I have no fucking clue. I'd love to hear their comms. I'd love to know what the fuck people are saying in these games, because it looks to me like people are just pressing buttons and going in, mate. Like, it doesn't look like there's some grand plan or someone come in, come out now, no, like, wait on the edge, like, wait for my call. Like, it doesn't look like there's any of that, mate. They're just fucking fighting. Meanwhile, for 100 Thieves, bro, the amount of globes on their team is crazy. I mean, we were talking about FBI last episode. He's really good. Obviously, Quid's good. River looked fucking phenomenal on the Zyra. Some of it's like fucking, some of the like sort of wombo combo moves were fucking sick.
Bro, Ayla looks fucking useful. Like, that's crazy to me, bro. Yeah. Like Ayla, like through his arc when he was in FlyQuest, we had the whole Winsome thing and like whatever was going on in FlyQuest. I was always in shock. I was always of the opinion that like supports in North America is just a joke. That Core JJ was the only name, and the names that came after him just don't play the game at the same level. They're just that kind of supports that just walk on the mid wave and just hit the mini wave, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna throw my spells and see what happens. No, you have to fucking step into river, put down some vision, base, keep tempo. You don't need to keep track of all these things. You need to defend the dives. That's how Team Liquid just like basically annihilated everybody in the beginning. But then it's like Mythi came to FlyQuest, helped out Busio. And now I think Vulcan does look better than he did in the previous year. And additionally, finally, it's like Ayla is playing the game. Like that to me is a shock from where he was at, you know, because even as recent as last year at Worlds, like Ayla did some horrific things. Like I suggest people look up Ayla Flash on Rel, I Will Dominate Reaction World Championship. He just flashes on the spot and just fucking, you never think a player like that's going to recover, you know? Like, that's the type of player you say, this guy his career is done. But he's keeping up with his team, which is super cool, you know? I'm going to give praise where it's due, you know? It is what it is.
You know what, Yamato, before I ask you about the bracket though, we all love games that make you sweat. Whether that's hoping a top NA team can close out a match, questionable nowadays, or grinding the ladder yourself, trying to win your pro wars and rank up. But contrary to popular belief, Yamato, sweating is not bad. It's actually good. It's the body's way of venting out heat. If you don't know, that's actually why dogs have to pant, because they don't have the sweat glands in the same way. The problem with sweating is the stink, as Umpty showed us. It's getting that stink off you, mate. That's the problem. Whipple, when he was against 100 Thieves on that past week. Well, with Mando, they have all sorts of baller products to help you get nice and clean and no longer smell. They have their whole body deodorant safe to use, whole body deodorant, which is safe to use anywhere on your body. Actually, it's not just under your arms. You can put it on your pits, your balls, your thigh. You can figure it all out. We all did anatomy. We all had a bath as a kid. We all know what parts of the body there are that need to be cleaned. I certainly hope people know what parts need to be cleaned. If you don't, by the way, if you're good, what parts of those? You need this product really badly, like immediately. Like this could save your relationships, mate. So that's not a feature they say, by the way. It's created by a doctor who saw how normal BO was misdiagnosed and mistreated. So what they did essentially is, the problem with body odor is it's when the bacteria feeds on the sweat. That's what causes the waste product, is the smell, basically. So this is clinically proven to block odor all day and control it for up to 72 hours. So also, if you're a gamer, it's not something you have to do every day. Every couple of days, you're going to be all right. They have a whole bunch of other features. They have the solid deodorant stick. They have the spray deodorant, so because it's a spray, it'll just get everywhere, won't it? You just have to reach in, etc. I actually really like the wipes. I think those are really good for gamers in case you're sweating, in case it's just like you've been playing for hours and hours. You can easily just go under your arms there. You can wipe the forehead and all the rest of that jazz. All their products are baking soda free and paraben free. They have all sorts of scents. I actually think the scent's one of the best things. Like, I like the bourbon leather one, but it's quite a manly sort of, like, almost like you would have in a barbershop sort of a smell, that Old West sort of smell I enjoy. They've got Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. They're all clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. Supposedly, like 12 hours after a shower, the effects of using soap work off, but as I said, this can control odor for many, many, many more hours than that. And as well as the soap selling nice, like I told you, the wipes are actually a banger. That should almost be branded just to gamers. That's actually a brilliant thing for people who are streamers or just going to play like 5 games of League of Legends in a row. We all know, when you get one of the most interesting details people actually don't know who are casuals and don't know about esports is, they don't know that just like chess players, when you actually are thinking a lot and you're in the stress of the game, you do sweat. You do actually like lose calories. It's like a workout mentally, because you've mentally fatigued. So I think for gamers, it's an excellent product. So Mando's starter pack is the perfect place for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like, for example, mini body wash and deodorant wipes that I just mentioned, and free shipping. So as a special offer to our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off the starter pack. Use code SUMMONING, easy. You can see how to spell it. Summoning is the code at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, don't stink like Umpty did in that game, and boost your confidence. Could have done like a Boosie or thing there, whatever. He is a lot better this year. Boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Thank you to Mando. Thank you to everyone who purchased it. By the way, if you do indeed purchase it, tell me what smell you like the best. Which one's your favourite one? Is it the Mount Fuji one? Do you prefer the Pro Sport? Are you like a boomer like me? Do you like the bourbon leather one? Okay, right. Here's what I want to ask now, though, because I think we are wide open for a spicy ass angle, which goes like this. So the bracket is drawn, and we have got the LTA South teams against the LTA North. The first matchups, and just in terms of the bracket, is you have 100 Thieves and Pain on the same side as Leviathan and FlyQuest. Then on the other side, you've got what do you call it? Azurus, the Argentinian team, against Team Liquid, and then you have Loud, the Brazilian team, against Cloud9. Right. As a result of that, as I said, if we assume all the LTA North teams win, you're actually going to get 100 Thieves, FlyQuest in the semis. And this is single elim, remember, guys, and only the winner goes to last stand. And then you would have Cloud9 against Team Liquid in the bottom one. So I actually think there's a world now where, in theory, any of these big teams could win this split process. This is why I would ask you, who is Yamato right now? Crystal ball. Who are you favouring to win this split? Who are you putting your reputation on?
I have to put it on FlyQuest. I have to put it on FlyQuest. Okay. Like, even in the losses, I think the quality of play is just higher than most. I think there's like a lot of things that they can fine tune and like tighten up. I think there's opportunity to take advantage of like the sloppiness, also in terms of like a draft prep, because like this format is vicious. You play a best of 3 and it's fearless, and there is a lot of holes you can find yourself in. I think there's opportunity for the other teams, but just in terms of like gameplay quality, I do think like FlyQuest do like the most high level decisions in terms of macro, and they find opportunities where other teams won't. So I think if they are less sloppy, they tighten up, which they can, which they've shown many, many times. I do think FlyQuest should be like the front runner to just win.
I can't believe I'm actually going to say this out loud. This will sound like you'll think I'm on Hot Take Point Made, the League of Legends show I did with Zabatine and Kire, because I'll tell you what, and I don't care. You can all laugh at me. It could go terribly. Maybe I'll be tweeting out, "Hey guys, it was just a BO3 and don't judge them on this date." I'm going to take 100 thieves. I can't even believe I just said that out loud. I'm taking like fucking teenage sniper and I'm betting on Ayla. What the fuck? What am I even doing? But here's the problem, bro. One, they've actually looked pretty tight this split so far. They actually look pretty coherent as a team. And here's the difference. I'm memeing about those players. Bro, it's the other three that I believe in. Like, River is legit. FBI, I think, is just consistently good. He's sort of like the light of fucking LTA. And then Quid is good, bro. Like, he can fucking carry some... So I think the actual damage is legit. The problem I've heard the other teams is they're up and down, and I don't know what to expect from the squad and who's going to play well this game. I kind of feel like I know none of thieves who's going to play well and who the carries are. So I'm going to get crazy. I'm going to say none of the big orgs. I'm just going to take 100 thieves. That guest slot team.
That's crazy, by the way.
It is, isn't it? I know. But there's the thing on Yamato. If I'm right, though, it'll look glorious. And in a few episodes, I'll be fucking healing. Listen, you don't know the game like the old man does, you know. But I was there when the Dark Magic was written, back when Double F and Afro Moo were in the bot lane, splitting the map every game. Exactly. Back when the Feral Flare ran rampant over the North American jungle. Back when Saint Vicious swapped to support and then got replaced by Bonnie Fufu, who then got replaced by, I don't know, someone who doesn't make pornography. That's a straight fire reference, but that's just a piece of law for people who don't like you know what I'm talking about, bro. You know what I'm talking about. Listen, I used to think his pike was filthy. Now everything he produces is filthy. Just absolutely rancid. Get it off the screen. Kids should not see that. The pike or the fucking shit. Just actually have some straight fire pike videos if you don't know, by the way. And I won't comment on whether the other videos are straight fire or not. That's up to you and your moral sort of compass. So yeah, that's right. I picked 100 thieves. We got all of that.
I thought the part that was crazy, because I like... This bracket is primed for something crazy to happen, right? Yep. I thought the crazy part is that they are guests. You know, it's gonna be fucking awkward if they're winning a couple of splits and like the champion is leaving. See you later. Like, that is really strange. Like, that's really strange.
That would also be the ultimate way to kill the whole LTA norm. The team that just won in dominant fight, they're just leaving actually. So it's just that all the rest of you shitters can just play and you can see who wins. I don't know. Like,
oh man,
it's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it's completely crazy. I don't know. It's like thinking about the format and the bracket is just so strange. I think it's C9 versus TL. I guess we could just like a light touch there. I do think C9 has it in them to beat TL. Like I think they would be like a favorite.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they are, you know, loose enough, and I think that they are just individually good enough. I don't think Team Liquid has any particular edge besides collective experience, and I don't know if it's going to shine through here.
Okay. Obviously, at the end of the show, we will do some viewer questions again, but I promised we'd talk about this, but at the end. So what we said was this, Yamato, when we were coming up with topics for this show, we said, obviously, I did publish this video, which was like a 1 hour 50 expose of Rekkles' career. Crucially, people missed this part. None of it was my opinion. All of it was literally cross-referenced using journalistic methods. All the reports of players who have been teammates of his, coaches of his, organization figures of his, even people who've known him. I won't go into more details because obviously I can't give away any of the sources. So I did this long video where I did this expose, which I will say, sadly, there was almost no discussion about the actual video. It all just became a thing of like what's going on with Rekkles at the moment and how he's feeling and what the effect on him is, etc. Which, by the way, to me is completely a secondary component. Like, I'm exposing what I think is corruption and bad behavior in the industry. So what I thought we'd do is this. We're not going to do a massive section on it. I don't know what you're going to say about it, but you can lead the way on this one. What would you want to talk about with this particular video? What's the framing you want to set up for this?
No, it's like in my mind, right? It's like I have like enjoyed like the biggest videos that I've always enjoyed from your side was like the Thorin versus videos. It's like the one that you dropped on like what was it, like Gamer Doc, and there was a Sheep Esports one, and like the whole EG saga as well. Like those were like so. Like the build up was just so super clean. I didn't know how you did it. Like on 2 hours, just fucking no cuts, rock and roll. You know, it was just fucking such a steady build up, and it was just so cohesive and clean. And I felt like in this one, for me, like in terms of like the build up, in terms of where like some of the things from outside, it's like even though I know some of these stories right from like olden days of like what happened in Fnatic and some of these other teams, in terms of the significance of some of the things, I think in some cases they like convoluted the things that I thought were like more important. Like I think like the Casey segment, right? I thought that was like sharp, really, really good. But then there was like the gameplay segments and the gameplay things where it's like from outside, I think you can just see it as like, oh, this is like Rekkles is flawed as a player. He's always a player that like played a set few champions, right? And it's like it just comes across as like, is this really, really important, or is this relevant? I feel like it could have been like sharper, or like in terms of like the presentation. You know?
I know what you mean. Put it this way: I could have just made the video 30 minutes, and it could have just essentially skipped the first, I don't know what, 40 minutes or something. It could have just been right. Here are the worst stories of Rekkles being a diva. Like here's when he refused to play something in scrims, and then told them 1 minute before the stage, I can play that, and then entered the game on stage. I could have shown ones where he, like those stories that people don't know publicly, Yamato, like that literally at Season 8 Worlds. Notice no one's disputed this, by the way. At Season 8 Worlds, the team actually voted bench this guy. We'd rather lose Worlds and have no chance whatsoever than play with him. And if you don't know, that was the tournament where he was really good, and they actually went to the finals after that boot camp because he was just being so antisocial to them, and they actually thought like abusive in terms of like how he's controlling the scrims and people's environment stuff. I could have just done that, but that's actually where people just didn't listen to the beginning of the video, Yamato. This wasn't a video of my opinion about why Rekkles is like a douchebag or something. It was presented that way. This was a video where I talked to all those people, and this is actually where I don't even get the criticism, because I never said this video, every minute of it is why Rekkles is a piece of shit. Like, no. Like, I even, if you notice, early on, I even explained things about eras when people liked playing with him. By the way, you'll notice that's probably the most dishonest response to the whole thing that people have done. They've said, you made a whole video about when he was 15. No, I actually explicitly said that there were very few problems until about 2017. Do the maths, he would be 21 years old then. And actually, when he was the youngest player in teams, people liked playing with him. He was successful at the game. The meta fit him at the time. And it was only the odd story, like the weird one in Alliance where he started smoking as like a weird, like way to cope with stress, or when he just didn't want to duo with Yellow Star, because just like double left after him, a lot of people thought Yellow Star was actually mechanically bad at the time, even though he was sort of a Doinby-esque figure from support, was kind of a genius. So I actually made it very clear, actually, that period was a positive aspect. By the way, that's what I think is a very fair video. If you don't know, I reference it later in the video about a story when he carried the game on Civet in Fnatic in 2023. When I talked to some of the people, I made it quite clear. I actually gave numbers. I said like 15% of people don't even dislike him. They liked him, or they thought he just had issues in this area, or he's just a quiet guy, or whatever, or in their era, maybe it's early on, they didn't have problems with him and he fit into the squad. When I explained in the video that I'm going to try and give their perspective on him as a person. Now, wouldn't it be way worse to just exclude all the good things and exclude all the times people said things were fine, or his game worked, or they appreciated playing? What? It sounds like people only want the TMZ, mate. And by the way, this isn't TMZ, because this isn't like SARS is close to. This is a part people have missed on this whole thing, is every single story I have sourced there isn't like someone over a beer, like, have you heard this fucking shit I heard? I can't go into it more, Yamato, because I can't give a single clue as to who the people are, because then those people will get the reaction I did, and their life will be ruined for 2 weeks. Not mine, but theirs will be, because sadly they'll all read the bloody replies, they're all fans, and they all care about what Reddit thinks and Twitter thinks. So, unfortunately, I actually feel like people just decide on this one, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I certainly could have just made it the exciting stories, but what I wanted to do was, this is what those people, by the way, there were people in every single team he ever played in, this is what they wanted the world to know. They wanted them to know things that, like, personality aspects of him didn't just manifest in inting a scrim. It would also manifest in, like, would he even be willing to play a meta champion that they're all playing? Would he play it for a week and they got success and then suddenly abandon it? And then they go, why are we losing scrims? Well, you were awesome on Callista. You were going, like, you know, these are things they wanted to get out there. Things about his personality. Mate, that's not even stuff I was asking people about. I was asking people stuff like, oh, I heard he was going to get benched for Forgiven, or what was going on with this thing here. People were telling me things like, no, I want to actually make it very clear. I actually think he has this aspect to his personality, or the way he communicated in this way felt manipulative. Like, he would go to, there's even stories I didn't tell where it's like two players would come to a coach and go, oh, for next season, like, I think we should kick player B because, like, Rekkles agrees with me, like, he's like not the right person for our team. And then the joke is, mate, the next day player B would come to the coach and go, look, me and Rekkles have had a chat, we're cool with how we're playing, but player A, it's like the way his champion pool's going is just not acceptable. And the joke there is, like, he's just played both people off against each other. And by the way, in that scenario, when the coaching staff's aware of that, like, Now you've got a massive problem as a coach. Not only are you dealing with these two players, you're dealing with this element over here. You try not to let the whole team fracture. These are also, you'll notice, all squads that are competing for the championship. So the stakes are crazy. I also wanted to show that part, by the way. There's been this crazy myth that in all these teams, everyone's just best friends and everything's awesome. And actually, by the way, I will say Rekkles has gone out of his way on his stream to present that view of the world, that Hillsang's his best mate and he loves Broxer and him and Nemesis and Southmeadow got like, these statements just aren't true. Look, I don't know what you want to say about any of this stuff. You're welcome and say whatever you like. So I don't really even know. Here's the weirdest thing. Which is it? Because it can't be both. Was it a massive nothing burger that everyone had already heard? And Rekkles didn't watch the video anyway, so no harm, no foul. It's just a video I made. You all chose to watch. Or was it outrageous lies which are bullying him and none of these things happened and I have no sort? Which is it? Because everyone wants it to be all of it at the same time as far as I can tell. So I don't know what you guys want. And by the way, I didn't make the video for you. There's another thing. I made this video for the people who were the victims of Rekkles over these years. And one of the reasons also, by the way, why I even say in the video, I won't speculate about him having autism, is one, I have no idea if that's even a medical diagnosis or if someone just told him you might have the symptoms of autism. I have no idea that. None of us do, by the way. We actually have very little information about that. He just said it in an interview once. Secondly, I didn't go into this in the video because I actually just wanted to present what his teammates said. It wasn't a video about my opinion, Yamato. A lot of people might not know this. I actually haven't had that tweet up for years. I'm autistic. But I didn't mention that because, first of all, I would, by the way, don't worry, if I make my own video, I'd have a very different perspective on certain things, by the way, I might even be more forgiving of. Certain things I would be very unforgiving of, where I don't think that's actually to do with autism. I think you can just be a different person who's more honest, etc. But I didn't want to muddy the water with that sense. It's actually quite funny that it's being portrayed as some crazy TMZ. I've even heard people describe it as a rant. Bro, I'm just actually talking way less animated than I am now. I'm just going, and then in this team, they were telling him to practice Jinx and Kai'Sa, but he didn't want to play them, so then he insisted on playing. It's actually like, it's such an even tone in the whole video, mate. And it's only really when I hit like a really fucked up thing I say, and then he did this. Or I go, and then they bet you for forgiven. So I feel like the silliest thing about this is, I think I just proved exactly the reason why no player can ever go on record. Is you will get this response. And mate, if you were one player and you went on the record, oh, you'll just get destroyed. Because you were just one player, maybe you didn't get along with it. Well, how about if I show you that throughout like 70% of this guy's career, a majority of people in his teams had an issue with him. A majority of coaches don't want to work with him. That's just a fact, mate. I have explored it. You are welcome to call me a liar. I don't give a fuck. I have 23 years on this motherfucker. None of you can say that. So there you go. Anything else to know? Any other thoughts?
Like I do think that anyone that would come at this like most people, if it was like the community in terms of just size of fandoms and so perceptions, they would come at this in like the most like bad faith towards anything you would say, right? I think that's for sure. I do think that there was very little, like, I guess it's like in terms of not having the understanding that there is, like, you have to say it in a very, very certain way in regards to, of course, to protect, because it's like it's very, very, like, you give out, like, even if sometimes if you just give the direct quote, yep, it can already be like very, very obvious. So you need to.
People were saying, Yamato, why not do something like blur the name and show the Discord screenshot? These are all clues. Even the way it's written, the language the person uses, the length of everything could be a clue. That's why I won't go into it again because it'll give away what I'm doing. That's why I keep saying things constantly, like supposedly, I think someone said that's not an accident, Yamato. That's an actual technique I'm using. Because I'll tell you what, you knew some of the stories. Do you think I gave away anyone? I think it'd be pretty, unless you were actually in those teams, I think you'd have a very hard time naming who the players and the coaches were. I think you'd have a hard time, mate. Maybe a couple you could get, but you've been around these people for some of your career. I think some of these are ones you've heard, but there was a lot where, like, I had some that was straight fire, mate, and I don't think anyone guessed some of these people. That's why some people even said that I wasn't in the video. They went out of their way to say it.
No, definitely. I think that aspect is like very, very difficult to navigate, right? I think that if you mentioned it's like your goal was to tell the stories of his past teammates, and in terms of like getting those stories out, it's like the stories are out, but the consequence, it's like what was the reaction you would hope for in terms of like because on this side, right?
Yeah.
So on this side, it's like I can imagine the people that told you these things. It's like now in the aftermath, it's like, what did they gain?
Not a single person. All these people, everyone who's reached out to me thanked me for still doing the video and essentially tanking the aggro from all these fans. These people are very happy the story is out. Here's the thing, Yamato. It wasn't about being believed. When you were as popular as like the Cristiano Ronaldo of Western League of Legends, Spoiler, I'll even use that as an actual reference. People will just believe you're the good guy in every scenario. You're Cristiano Ronaldo, bro. Of course you couldn't have done anything bad. You're the best guy ever. You come off great in interviews, great on camera. Everyone loves you, clean cut, etc. This is the weirdest part about this topic, is this whole thing of like, what do you think about the consequences of the person who's reckless? No, you know what, Yamato? When someone has abused and manipulated teammates in a malicious manner for 6 to 7 years, including, by the way, not as a teenager, but as like a 25-year-old adult man who has made millions of dollars, when you are bullying 19-year-old fucking junglers and people who have never even played in the LEC and ruining their mental state, I don't think about what you might feel like when that is exposed to the world. I think about the people who suffered because of your actions and who will never, ever get justice, by the way. What I did wasn't justice. All I did is make it known what this person did. There will never be justice. He will never pay people back lost earnings that they will never have again. He will never be able to fix people's careers so they haven't had them completely dismantled. Do you wonder why you've only just seen 113 again now? It was the fucking EU Masters champion. People like that, they have whole careers. He had to play on shitty Astralis, and now he's only been brought back by former coach Striker. So actually, here's what I did, Yamato. You know what? I imagine if you revealed, I'll use a very extreme example, that someone was secretly a serial killer, right? Because this is sort of the social equivalent of that. If someone was secretly a serial killer, and someone said, I'm going to expose all the stories of the people who knew this person and his darkness and what he did, you know what? I imagine that serial killer might feel really bad. I wouldn't give a flying fuck, mate. I'm thinking about the victims of the serial killer and their families. I think that trumps any fucking Rekkles fan or T1 fan or person who worked in an org or edited a video for him who goes, I met him and he was a really cool guy. All right, well, let me just call you up. You weren't depressed, mate. Get over it. Or, other guy, did you just have your whole fucking career ruined and he told you he loved you, but now you had to go and play in a shit team and never had a chance at the LEC title again? He's got autism, bro. Get over it. I don't think that's acceptable, mate. That's one of the reasons why I haven't kept this really calm right now, because I think actually this notion of like, it's so unnecessary. Why are you making the video? That's disgusting. That is actually fucking disgusting. I'm not saying you're seeing it, mate, but that was the vibe of like, you just did this to hurt him. No, motherfucker. He repeatedly hurt other people for years and years and years and years. And you'll notice hasn't denied it. You'll notice those players didn't deny it. And so after that, it is now exposed. By the way, that's all I can do. All I can do is put that video out there, tank the aggro. It will now be forgotten about. He will continue to play with last for Tories. They'll probably be in LEC in a year or two, mate. He might even play more years in the LEC. Maybe he'll even win the LEC. I can't actually impact his career at all. So you know what? I think it's a very small price to pay that in this case, he felt bad. Are you ready for the punchline? For not watching the video. He didn't even watch the video. He doesn't even know what's in the video. And here's the last detail, Yamato. I allowed that premiere on intentionally to be up for many, many hours. And you know, there's actually a feature on YouTube. I could have scrubbed all the comments when the video came out and started fresh, right? The reason I left the comments, Yamato, and I've screenshotted it all, is because before 1 second of the video premiere had ever played, there were hundreds of comments saying it was all lies. It was all made up. It couldn't be true. I'm evil. I hate him. I'm bullying him. Like, bro, this was not about anything said in that video. This was some sort of insane, we are circling the wagons around Rekkles. He cannot do any wrong. And then lastly, I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't bring up autism in my own case, Yamato, because I don't like victim narratives. I actually like to know that, yes, I have strengths and I have weaknesses, and I play to my strengths and I try and minimize my weaknesses where possible. And if my weaknesses hurt people around me, I don't go, well, that's my weakness. I go, I'm very sorry about that. It's actually something I have a hard time controlling. Here's some of the ways in future. Maybe I can communicate better to you. Maybe I can get around that. I haven't seen any proof he ever did that in his career until more recently when he got this diagnosis. I've never ever heard a single coach or player ever say he understood this aspect of like, maybe I'm the problem here. Maybe I'm doing it. So actually, I don't think you get to just go, what's that? A doctor says something, so none of that counts. It does count. It all counts. Everything I've done and said counts. Everything he's done and said counts. Everything you've done and said counts. That's life, mate. That's accepting responsibility. So hey, there you go. Anything else?
No, just on my side, right? Like I do think it's like from a personal side, right? It's like I carry also so many stories about what has happened in my own teams, in my own experiences, and like people carry stories of what I've done in past teams. It's like I like there were times where, you know, I wasn't the best coach and shit happened, and I do think that often there is an internal conflict for me in terms of, you know, making a decision in terms of informing others just to make sure that you know, in there's like actors in the scene that are still active in the scene that part of me is like hopes that stories come out.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes it's like understanding my role in distributing that information so people know. So like maybe, you know, in the future sense, things might be different. You know, making a decision of giving that information or not is always something that I've always wrestled with, but I've always fell on the side of like, oh, it happened to the team, I'm going to keep it. If they come for me, then okay, it's a different thing. It's like I mentioned before that I carry like ammunition. But I do think there's been moments where I'm like, shit, should I just fucking put this to light because like this is fucking fucked up that it's continuing, you know? I've definitely had that.
So I'll give you some food for thought, by the way. I'll tell you something that I think will even make you think twice about the framing of this video. Do you remember what happened about a month or so ago when Peter Dunn did a video with me on my channel about perks in Heretics?
Yeah.
Why didn't everyone worry about how perks would feel when that video came out? Why didn't everyone go, why is Peter Dunn, an older man, bullying perks, one of the greatest players of all time, and a great captain and a champion? Why is he bringing this out now? You're not even in the game anymore, Peter. You're retired. Why are you doing this? No, what everyone did, and are you ready, Yamato, including Rekkles fans, because they thought, this is what's so crazy, they thought Perks' behavior was so bad it would justify what Rekkles has done because they thought Rekkles hadn't done anything. So when that video came out, everyone loved it. Not a single person ever said for 1 second, Yamato, where's the evidence? So it's just Peter Dunn saying it. Everyone believed it, hook, line, and sinker, every word out of his mouth. And then people even had the audacity, by the way, to say to me, hey, why didn't you mention anything about perks? It was my fucking video on my channel, you lunatic. It's exactly what you told me you just wanted now. I got the person on record. By the way, that is the only time you will ever see someone on record like that. And that's just because Peter Dunn is retired from esports. He is done in esports in both senses. And as a result, he will not ever be a coach again. So he actually didn't have to worry about people sending him hate messages. I mean, there's not many Perks fans as Rekkles fans in that sense. And actually, everyone loved that fucking video. And everyone believed every word and repeated every word. By the way, even though some of that was Peter Dunn's perspective and Peter Dunn's opinion. And by the way, who the fuck knows what's going on with Perks? If you don't know, Perks' dad died a few years back. He's had all sorts of things where he moved to America, then he moved back. He's had all things where he had to leave the team that he founded. I'm sure he's got all sorts of shit going on in his head, mate, but we don't give a flying fuck, do we? Because he hasn't come out and said he's got a magical word that makes everything else fine. I don't know what the fuck we're doing at this point in time, mate. At this point in time, people are just mad because Rekkles is mad as far as I can tell, or Rekkles fans are. Beyond that, let anyone out there who considers himself a man of character tell me where I lied, tell me where what I said was wrong, tell me what I said was unfair, and then tell me again how any of it's my opinion. I didn't have a single opinion in the whole video, bro. Now, how can it be a rant when my opinion isn't in the video? And by the way, when you say something's a rant, you intentionally mean that to diminish it. What you mean is the person's just getting mad and spouting off. Like, that's the opposite of what I did. For 1.5 years, I collect. By the way, you know, everyone going, you just did this for clicks and money. Bro, I will never, ever get the opportunity cost lost back from that video. I must have spent like 20 hours alone on voice calls. Then I had to go back and fucking figure out every single thing they said and note it all down. Then I had to cross-reference it all. Then I had to do follow-up investigations with other people who could then, as a third party, be the one who independently verified something like that happened without being told. So it was blind, so we know it actually happened. I had to spend so much time that, but even if this video made $10,000, you might, I'll never get that time back. I'll never get that. Mate, I could easily make money on these shows, on other ones, way more than that. It wasn't about money, mate. Listen, it popped off. Everyone couldn't stop watching it. It'll definitely make loads of money on my channel relative to my other YouTube videos. But I don't know if you know this, mate. I don't make my income off YouTube ad revenue. That's not one of the smallest parts of my revenue. That's not really the thing I'm about. If people don't know, I make videos on my channel for the things I want to talk about, for the things I think are important to talk about. Sometimes that might be something frivolous, like who was the best Quake dueler in 2003 from Sweden or something. But sometimes it might occasionally, like these pieces, be a really serious piece where I just actually have the feeling and have talked to these people that this has to get out there one way or another.
No, like you mentioned this, like my own framing is I understand the problem, not the problem, but the challenge of navigating sharing this information without revealing the person. And like I thought that reaction that, oh, there's no proof, there's no sources, whatever. Like that.
People would say, I could just make something up about you. Yeah, but you wouldn't have 23 years of not lying, so it wouldn't mean the same, would it? Yeah, you could just go, hey, I've heard you fuck kids. Like that's just you, a random person saying that. When I say something, it means something, mate. My opinion's one thing. My opinion could be wrong. It could be silly. It could be nonsense. It could be ill-informed. When I say a fact, it happened, and it is true to my knowledge.
Something that I wanted to ask, just for my own curiosity, is it's like you like we were on the show together when you mentioned the first time that you're going to make this video.
Yeah.
It's like the process of the time. It's like because a lot of the stories are like KC Fnatic 2023 was at the end point. Was this like something you had on the back burner, or like what was the idea behind like the timing? You know.
I mean, the real problem is this. The only regret I have is that I waited so long to do it. Like, you're right. I actually had, say, like 85% of the video sort of like researched, not, it actually turned out, by the way, just making the script. This script, which is just obviously like keywords, like I've shown you before, the script alone to structure it, by the way, probably took like 2 hours, 3 hours. Like, there's so much information, mate. That was the problem. That's also why I made it different sections. I even thought to myself, you know what, if I actually wanted this to just be like a banger where everyone's like, holy fuck, every 5 minutes, I should actually structure it differently. What I should do is I should bounce around. I should go like, here's a personality trait, here's a storyline of inting scrims, here's an aspect about how he manipulates people, here's how he fucked up a live match at a Rift Rivals and didn't play. I could have done that, but I thought, you know what, I'm not actually about the drama in that sense. I want it to be like quite a coherent video. So I want one section, here's who he is to the public, here's who he is in terms of how he communicates with his teammates, here's his champion pool issues over the years, which then leads into what is he like in scrims, what's he like in a boot camp, what did he do in official matches, what's he just like in a team environment, what's he like in the off-season. I made it actually very segmented. I think most people just watched the first 40 minutes, turned it off, and intentionally didn't go to all the straight fire stories. If you do that, by the way, that's your own ignorance, mate. I don't mind stupid people, you can be an idiot, but when people are willfully ignorant, I have no time for that. And so actually, if I could have, when I told you, I actually would have done it like a month after that. I mean, first of all, by the way, I will say, I do think the entire autism angle has just basically skewed and warped the whole discussion. It just became all about that. And what's so gross about that, by the way, Yamato, is, as someone who is autistic and doesn't bring it up all the time, the idea thousands of people who aren't autistic are going to tell me what the experience of being autistic is like. Get the fuck out of my face. Can you not see how gross that is? You know what? One of the number one League of Legends fan bases who, if sending horrible messages, have harassed an autistic person would be Rekkles fans right up until the second he got the autism diagnosis. And then they picked right up where they left off as soon as I did this video. So if the good guys are the ones saying to kill yourself, you know what? I think I've figured out which the sides are there. I'm just here to actually represent the victims, mate. So all I'll say is I think the reaction alone told you. I'll give you a bit of food for thought. So 2 things. One, I should have done it at the end of whatever it was, 2023, I think it was, when I told you that. I think it was around Christmas or something around that time. I actually just meant to do it at the time, but this was such an insane undertaking. And as I just said, this isn't my full-time job, bro. I have like 50 jobs. I do CS shit as well. Like, that's one of those things where you can't just sit down for an hour and do it. You probably had to sit down in about like 7 or 8 sessions of many hours of like listening to stuff, doing the notes, checking. So, by the way, just going and finding the games. Do you know how many times someone would tell me a game and they'd be like, it was Rift Rivals in the 3rd game. And then you're looking and it's like, oh, you didn't even play Rift Rivals. You look at, oh, he means MSI. You're like, stuff like that took forever, mate. Like, remember, people are going off memory sometimes. And sometimes people remember stuff incorrectly. And then I have to cross-reference. By the way, the stories I had to take out because, first of all, some of them were too personal. That's why I said in the video, if he talks about my personal life, then I'll talk about his. If not, I believe that's a line that should be a boundary. You don't go into people's personal lives. This is about the professional person who played League of Legends for money. There's that aspect. And then I'll just give you one last piece of food for thought. Imagine the exact same video. Now, look, it couldn't exist. I actually know this person's career. They wouldn't have as many stories. But imagine the exact same video comes out a week earlier, Yamato, but the topic isn't Rekkles. Are you ready? The topic's upset. How do you think that video would be received? Would it be like this? Would everyone go, but how does Upset feel? Remember what happened with his wife a few years ago? He had a lot of mental issues. I'm sure he's been struggling because he came 10th place all this stuff. Oh, you're bullying him. Would they all go, hey, these stories are all probably nonsense. How dare you bring out these stories? No, you know in your heart, Yamato, that would be the number one video on Reddit. People would even go, what amazing journalism by Thorin, outing that piece of shit Upset because he's an unpopular player. You know that. Rekkles is the most, by the way, Rekkles, who didn't even play in a top major region last year, I believe was the 2nd most searched name on Wikipedia after Faker, bro. After Faker. Like, he's above Carrier, world champion. He's above, like, all the FlyQuest, all the Cloud9, all the G2, all those players. He's above all that. That's how popular this player is. So, would you say I'm wrong? If this video was about Upset, it was all the same stories, would everyone go, this is disgraceful, how dare you? What do you think?
No, for sure not. Like, the community perception is a very, very powerful tool and weapon, right? It's for sure. It's like, I think, like the Perks thing is already the example that is the most blatant. It's already happened, and people are more inclined to move in a certain direction. Definitely. I wanted to ask you, because you did say in the video, maybe it's like
go for it,
because it sparked my curiosity. You mentioned that you almost felt Like there's certain moments you feel sympathetic about, like you feel sympathy. And could you elaborate?
Sure.
Is this the time for it?
Well, here's the problem. As I say in the video, I actually have never had any personal connection to Rekkles. I've never spoken to the guy. All I've ever seen is what he's like on camera and then the stories that people have told me behind the scenes. Now, the interesting thing is this. If you ever look at my career, Yamato, there's this really weird perception that I only love antisocial assholes. So think about the people in my career I love. Now, what's funny is some of them I'm going to reference, by the way, now aren't even thought of that way. But you know what it was like back in the day. Do you remember back in the day in the original Fnatic, how people thought about Soaz? He's a whiner and he's arrogant and, you know, he doesn't need to practice. He can win. People used to actually flame all the Americans loved to hate that guy on Reddit, mate. They all fucking were loving it when he was failing. That's why they loved it when he went over in Immortals. They were like, he was shit all along or whatever. Then I think of the other ones, Forgiven. By the way, one of the hardest players ever to be coached. One of the people who's caused... The joke is, if you ever listen to my Reflections interviews, almost every teammate has a story about how Forgiven like almost made them cry or like fucking just like think, oh fuck, even though we're like the second best team, let's just quit the game. I might just retire or something. He was doing that shit. Then you have players like Dardoch was a person, double lift himself for many, many, many years. Now what you'll notice along the line, you can maybe say Upset, but he was never as bad as this, by the way. Upset was more just like a guy where he just had very strong opinions, you know. The reason why I grab self-made, even though he's always been a dickhead to me, I've actually always had a self-made because here's what I can appreciate about them. These are people who clearly are socially misaligned, bro. They actually, in most cases, these people aren't malicious. This is actually their fucked up coping mechanism for their own frustrations. Like I've always said, Forgiven, the reason why so many people hated playing with Forgiven, but always talk quite fondly, is because they know that he was actually trying to win the game. He was never hinting a scrim to fuck you up. He was screaming at you in the scrim because he didn't do what he thought you needed to do to win the game. They could always respect that aspect. And so basically what I'm getting at is I've always had an attraction to people who are very talented, but their social aspects and their personality gets in their way. And that's what fucks them up. Because here's the thing, I used to be like that in my life. I've told this story many times. In the very early time of my esports career, I was a very lazy person. I was the guy who did the min-max, mate. I would just do like the one piece where I was feeling like it that day. Then I'd just chill for a few days. Or I'd do like a bunch of stuff over here, but then I'd think, I remember most of that. I don't need to research it. And then there was times in life where I learned the outside discipline things that made me a lot more diligent. It actually took me a long, long time, but it probably took me over 10 years to learn the social aspect. If you ever even heard how I used to talk about League or CS, I would make the Reddit super team of all the names, and I wouldn't even give a fucking thought about, wait a minute, this guy's silent, and that guy wouldn't ever get along with this sort of personality, and actually you haven't got a glue guy there, you haven't got the guy who raises the morale, because, hey, that's just some bullshit. Hey, anyone could cheer. It's all about the shooting in the game and stuff. Like, I was a very, very one-dimensional thinker about League of Legends and life itself. So as I've gone through those challenges myself and matured as an individual and overcome some of my own weaknesses, the reason I'm drawn to people like that is because I can see how, oh, bro, if you just, like I used to tell Forgiven this, I even told Simple this, by the way, before he was the greatest player in Counter-Strike. I told Simple, bro, I'm not even exaggerating. If you even just did a fake apology to your teammates, like 1 out of 5 times, it would go so far, bro. Even if you just said, you know what, even though in my own head, it wasn't my fault. Maybe that was my bad in this game. You know what? I know I carried the game, but I was too harsh on you in that moment where you fucked up. I said, if you do small things like that, bro, it's going to have such a great impact on your teammates. And the second you do that, and your teammates now don't just play with you, they play for you, you will win everything. I have a letter where I wrote an open letter to Simple about this. I basically said, you can be the greatest player of all time, but you have to basically, in the same ways you grinded on your skill set, you got to grind on your social aspect now, and you got to learn how to communicate. You got to learn, by the way, how to even communicate your flaws. And by the way, here's a little pro tip for people in life. In your relationship, let's assume you have a partner, a spouse. It's not that you have to be perfect, or it's not that you identify a problem and fix it. Some problems are very hard and may never be fixed. But if you can communicate the problem, that you're aware of it, that you understand the impact it's having on the other person, and here's the best angle of all, especially if you're autistic. If you can give them a little pro tip, if you can tell them something like, look, I have a really hard time, for example, with like time. Like I get really annoyed if people are late, or we don't have an exact time frame, and then I'll be worried. If so, how about this? If you want to do something with me next week, just tell me like an exact time, offer me 3 slots and I'll book you in. And things like that go so far, bro. Even if you tell someone, I'll give you an example, you have bad sleep, you drink a bit of caffeine, you're a bit irritable. If you tell someone at the beginning of the day, look, it's not an excuse, but I'm probably going to be a bit of an arsehole today. I'm sort of fucking on edge. You know, like I'm annoyed about something that's nothing to do with you. And so later on, if I'm a bit short with you, just remind me of that. It'll bring me back to the moment and ground me. And then maybe I won't seem like I'm just being horrible to you, or I have ill feelings towards you. And I don't want to make you feel bad. That stuff like that goes so far. So to bring it round to Rekkles, I don't know him. So I've never had a chance to have these conversations with him. I've talked to his teammates over the years and suggested these things. Sadly, They're not necessarily in the position to understand any of these factors. So yes, there were times in these stories, by the way, like I'll give you an example. The part that everyone probably thinks is really like fucking, ooh, that's like drama, is where people were saying he's like a sociopath and he's turning his emotion off and just staring at a wall. Bro, that's actually not, to me, that's one of the less malicious parts to me. I don't think that's as conscious as people think. I think if a neurotypical person did that, they would intentionally be giving you the cold shoulder. They'd be fucking with you. They'd sort of even be saying it by being aloof. Like, I don't have to talk. Who the fuck are you? I don't even have to speak to you. In fact, until my boss makes me, I won't even do it. But I actually did in moments like that think to myself, oh, this is a guy who can't handle it. He's shutting down. This is someone where actually the other person, their method of trying to get him to open up is to prod him some more and to ask him to open up more. And that's actually going to make him go more into his shell. And it's going to make him retreat more. And then he's going to think things like people are all against me. Here's the problem though, Yamato. That's when I'm doing what you, the fans, are doing. I'm empathizing with Rekkles' position and what he's feeling. But then when I come out of it and I look at the things he did that aren't just simple mistakes or people just didn't understand, things where he actually actively did Littlefinger from Game of Thrones and fuck people, or got coaches fired from their jobs, or just lied to people's faces and said he liked them and went out of his way to befriend them and then privately betrayed them and was trying the whole time to get someone else in the team. I just think about the victims, mate, and it makes it very easy to press hit send on the video.
No, I think that part makes sense. You know, I do think, you know, it's like my direct. It's like I played with Rekkles back in season 2, so it's like completely like irrelevant, you know, because we both just kids.
He was literally a teenager back then.
Yeah, it's like, bro, I was a teenager, he was a teenager, and like we were just playing League, like it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I do think like I never was on the inside on the team with him. Like it was bound to happen, right? Back in that off season between 2020 and 2021, because of course Rekkles was like the main target for Fnatic and G2 at the time. Because he was just holding like the off season by the balls, but I knew then that like Hilly and Whippo and the squad like that they played with at that Worlds wanted to really work with him. And for me from outside, it's like, oh, he fucking performed at Worlds, he did well. I wanted to play with him or work with him. It's like, you know, for me, I do think it's like it's always like the path to redemption, right? It's like for everybody. Because like a lot of the behaviors that occur, they're also like behaviors I saw like in other players, like in segments, right? It's like, well, play behave like this. It's like high pressure environment. Like people get like really fucking, you know, you get to see the worst side of people like in high pressure environments.
Absolutely,
it's like people think it's so rosy. Like I always make the claim. It's like people mention, it's like, why would Zeus want to leave T1? I was like, bro, these 3 years probably were like the most stressful, high pressure fucking. Like high pressure moments. Like imagine if you're on T1, you fucking lose. Like let's say
you let Fake down. You let T1 down. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like like imagine the like the mental strain. It's like with the fact that it's like the image of how everything is on the outside is so like clean is crazy, you know. And I think that aspect of like personality really comes through. It's like I've seen like the worst side of people in competition and that's what it is, you know. I do think it's like when it is like malicious to the point where it's not from like an angle of wanting to, you know, move the team forward, because usually that's like there needs to be the trust that people are doing things with the right intent. There is that, but a lot of players need to do that soul searching. Like it seems like post. I heard from people that 2023 Fnatic was like different in many ways. I don't know if it was because like he came back to the major league, back to Fnatic, right? There's a sense of like humbleness maybe that comes with it. And then it's like I believe the diagnosis was like made public, right, with the whole T1 thing. And there seems to be some kind of like progression. But I am understanding of the point of view that it's like some people that might have experienced certain things, it's like certain things I've experienced with people. It's like I have moved because I have found my forgiveness. It's like for me to move on, you need to forgive, right? And I can see that angle also from players that might have had like issues, players that maybe speak up, you know, like a Brooks and Bupo. It's like, oh, you look at it from a different perspective. You kind of feel like, oh, for me to be able to move on, it's like I need to, you know, forgive and understand. That's like growth from every angle. And I don't know how you feel now, but it's like post post the diagnosis being made public, and also it's like his stint in T1 and now like Los Sartones. Do you think that he's different?
I mean, the problem with that is like, what am I comparing it to? Like, first of all, notice, here's why I don't accept even that framing, Yamato. Because the first thing you need to do to be forgiven and to move on is to acknowledge it happened and then apologize. Now, don't tell me he can do that privately. The whole time during his whole career, he's been turning that stream on and going on LEC and going on Reddit and saying that he loves these people and they love him and that he has no problems and that it's all lies. And it's only ever the org owners that are the lies. You know, it's G2 are liars, Fnatic are liars. Now, hilariously, Carmen Corp are great, even though, as I pointed out, he basically got his coach fired. He put his coach in a position where his coach had to cripple himself or leave the org. He left the org and he's now the coach of BDS. Like this, as far as I can tell, the only teams he was cool in was the early teams till 2017. Those ones are fine. And then potentially T1, a team where, by the way, he cannot fluently speak to his teammates except in his mother tongue. Well, it's not his mother tongue, be Swedish, but it'd have to be in English. Like, that's even something, by the way, I thought was quite sinister, where he just blatantly said in that Cadrill interview, like he implied he could actually talk Korean. Mate, you don't have to go too deep on it, but you lived in Korea. I don't care how many hours a day you do lessons for. Bro, it would take like 5 years to get to the level of like a child in Korean. It's one of the hardest languages in the world. It has no bearing on English at all. This isn't like when you go to Spain and you can pick up a few phrases. It's got like Romance language elements. There's no way he can speak Korean. There's just no way. If you ever watched the clips, why isn't he just speaking Korean to them over the dinner? He's not. They're like loosely translating things and saying things, and he's saying like the most basic phrases of all time, mate. So I actually haven't seen any signs that he's changed. I've certainly never seen him acknowledge it. And the fact that now the whole thing's like, well, I just want to move past it and I don't feel good about that. I'm sorry, you don't get to make that call. At the end of the day, is it true or not? This is the question for Rekkles. Is it true or not? Did you do the things I said in the video? If you did them, then you can move on if you want. I can't make you not. But I think if you want to be believed that you have changed, you must literally you must actually have a penance for that. You must say publicly, since you did so much public work before, that what happened, what is true, you should actually acknowledge it all. Listen, own it if you want at that point in time. Because here's the other thing people keep doing, Yamato. If someone diagnoses you with cancer, is that all you need to do? Do you just get better from cancer because you know you've got cancer? No, you have to fucking aggressively deal with it, bro. You have to figure out things that are going to limit the growth of it. You have to actually attack it and root it out. And especially, you'd probably have to change your whole way of life for a period of time. This is why I'm disgusted by people constantly bringing up this autism angle. It doesn't explain all these things. Some of that behavior is not the behavior of people, as far as I know, who are autistic, Yamato. Like, I'll give you an example. All the autistic people I've ever known are actually, they're more like the person who's very reserved. They have no social game whatsoever. Even if they do, it falls apart in like a minute. They can do a joke, but then if it doesn't land, they're fucked. They're not doing this thing where people are saying for the first week or two, you're really cool and you're in tune and they're loving you and the vibe, but then you go cold. No, it'd be the other way around. If anything, they'd start cold and they warm up over time once you get to know them and you know their specific way and their way of talking and you bond with them a little bit and you play a game or an intro, then they open it. It's the other way around. So I find it disgusting that people who don't have autism are just going to tell me, autism explains it all. None of it's his fault because of autism. Who cares about the victims because of autism? And then finally, since he's got a diagnosis and he talks to a psychiatrist, he's just better now. Didn't LS himself say on his stream, he went through like 20 therapists and physio and psychiatrists? Well, and how did Rekkles instantly find one that just cured him? Like it's some magic. By the way, there isn't a cure, Yamato. It's a condition of how your brain works. Like, it's not like you got a cold and you take some fucking ginger tea and fucking some whatever drug you would take to get over a cold. That's not how it works. So I find that whole thing gross, bro. Like, why do people, here's what I don't get. Why do I need to tell you he was awesome in T1? What would that have to do with what he did to people in Fnatic? What would that have to do with what he did with people in
G2? Like a side part, right? Like, I understand that the video wasn't focused on that aspect. It was stories of what happened in the previous years. I understand that part. I can add though that like we had Rekkles on Euphoria. I believe it was back in 2020, and he did already publicly say that he was going to therapy, right? So it could have been some like a long-term process that was.
I don't know the guy, so I can only go off what he said publicly. Same as most people. The difference is, though, I get the feeling most people do think they know what he's like privately. And by the way, I told you before, I actually think it's gross for people to go, I edited some videos for him and he's always cool. What are you saying? You know that's an implication that it's a lie what people are saying. I'm going to give a very extreme example right now, but I'm serious about this, Yamato. If somebody said, because this has happened in esports, not with Rekkles, if somebody made an accusation of sexual assault and they said, at this party in 2017, I was sexually assaulted by insert a random, Bill Bob 7000 from Germany, right? If you then came out on Twitter and went, well, I've been video editing videos for Bill Bob 7000 and he never sexually assaulted me, you are quite literally implying that means it didn't happen. That is absolutely your purpose in saying that. So I think it is fucking insane for like Joe Marsh. Joe Marsh, he's not even in fucking Fnatic or G2. He's going to come out and imply that like Rekkles isn't like that at all. Okay, bro, you can do that if you want. I don't know what your agenda is, or rather I do. And actually, that's gross to me, mate. That's gross. Look, you can say it from this angle. Here, notice how they never own it as well. What you could do is this, Yamato. If it was a good faith comment, what you'd say is this. Look, I can't speak to Rekkles in his past teams. I've heard he had problems and a lot of issues with teammates, and maybe people hold ill word. All I can say is since he's been in T1, I thought he was very good. He was a model player and he was very disciplined and we had no issues with him at all. So we're very happy working with him and we would work with him again. You could say that, but that implication of like, it didn't happen to me, it didn't happen to me. Who gives a fuck? Still happened to those people. Again, did those people get depressed? Did they have their careers ended? Did they get ruined by Rekkles fans publicly because it was implied the jungler entered all the games or the fucking top laner won't communicate? Did those things happen? Because if they did, I don't care what he was like in T1. That's not even my business to need to care about, by the way. I don't even, whatever. It's whatever at this point, mate.
No. It's like the public perception is just a game, right? It's just a game. It's like in a lot of cases just a facade. Like we mentioned it about the whole EWC thing too, right? It's like just about like having public perception by your side and riding waves most of the time, right?
I'll give you a crazy example, bro. If there's one part of the video I would tell you to go and watch, it's when I talk about him inting drafts and scrims, bro, because that's your world. You know about this. There's even a hilarious part where LS starts watching the video. He also just tunes out after like 45 minutes or something, because he can't handle all the personality stuff. He just assigns all of that to autism because LS himself had a diagnosis in the last few years. And so LS relates to him very heavily, and LS hasn't done these things to people. So LS's thing is just like, oh, they're just not understanding his autism. The problem is this. There's a hilarious moment where even though if you watch the video, LS is quite clearly and very honestly trying to find a way it's not Rekkles' fault. And he skips to an actual game example I gave of a game against Schalke when he was in G2. And there's a moment in this game where Rekkles on Tristana just jumps out of a fight and refuses to go back in when they've used all the ults and everything of the other team. And for real, he could have got like a 3k or even a penta around the dragon. Here's what's hilarious. Go watch this on his stream. It's on his Twitter like video thing if you go and click on the icon or whatever. Right? On this stream, LS initially gets the wrong moment. He gets the earlier dragon fight and he watches it and he goes, this is nothing. This is nothing. But then what's hilarious is because he's actually an honest person, he keeps the video rolling. He sees the clip I'm talking about and even he goes, yeah, that is illegal actually. Yeah, he did just jump. He should have just stayed in that fight and killed them all. Like, even he owns it, mate. So one of the saddest things about this as well is, I'll just give you this last detail, mate. The other reason why I think you would find the draft and the inting part very interesting is, this is how I know it was bad faith by Rekkles fans. Because people even told me, even famous people, that I had made up that these were illegal drafts or bot lanes that aren't meta. Right? One, Yamato, I didn't put my opinions in the video. That is what the greatest players of all time and his teammates said about that draft, about that pick, about what he did in that team fight. You're welcome to disagree with them, but spoiler, I didn't give that opinion. And that's how I know people are biased, bro, because they even said all those picks were nonsense. They were all, they were telling me, are you ready, Yamato? They said it's totally fine. I hope you remember this because it's your era. In 2021 spring, they were saying it's a totally normal bot lane to play Aphelios and Tom Kench.
Oh, yeah.
Or Aphelios and Thresh. Aphelios and Thresh, sorry.
2021 was, they played Vayne Thresh against me. Because the funny, like two of the examples was against me in particular. It was once when I was in Vitality 2018.
Oh my God, and then, when he did the jumping on Vayne, right?
And then there was the Vayne Thresh against us when we played like the Tristana.
It wasn't meta at the time, mate. That was not a meta pick.
It wasn't. I can confirm that. If I had we were laughing on stage like when that came through.
Yeah.
So it's like and then once again it's like,
it was fuck up. He never picked Vayne again. He just did it that one time. You know.
Yeah, I think like just the main thing. I guess is just you framed it in a way where of course it's like it's the stories of people that want to get this off the chest. And I think everyone came at it in bad faith due to what, of course, like what the community perception is. It's like people think like you want to drag him down for what he is now, but you just want to put these stories to light. And it's sometimes I wish.
Question, mate. How do you drag someone with the truth? The way you fuck with someone, mate, is you lie about them.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
misrepresent them. I didn't do that. One, I didn't give my opinion. By the way, I'm obliged. I'm actually totally fine to give my opinion. You guys don't tell me what the fuck I say on my YouTube channel. By the way, if I'm just some 41-year-old boomer, turn off the YouTube channel, idiots. You know, there's a million things on the internet. Why am I relevant? You know why I'm relevant, Yamato? Because I am relevant, because I have status in this industry, because I've done things, because I've told the truth. That is why the video has 300,000 views, mate. It's not that I'm irrelevant. I'll give you an example. Say I told you right now, Yamato, you won't believe this. Bill Bob 4000 from Colombia's made a video on Rekkles. You gonna go watch it? Of course you're fucking not. You don't care. He's irrelevant. The person themselves has to be relevant for you to care what they've said. That's why the whole thing, I said, if you look at how people talk about the topic and frame it, you can immediately tell what their whole agenda is, bro. And I've seen almost no one actually address what was in the video.
No. I listened through the video twice, and like I had some thoughts that I just wanted to bring up to you.
By the way, if you have any
That's
more,
like the only thing.
let's do it now before we end. Give me some.
No. Honestly, like the main thing that I was just curious about is like you mentioned the sympathy aspect, and then I wanted to know about the timing as well, and then I just wanted to like the intention if it was fulfilled, and this was covered. You know, this was the only thing that I was left wondering, because it's like the stories. It's like I understood the framing, I got the framing, and that's it. That's it to my part. I just was wondering. You know.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's like I'm a big person on like it's like I understand, like I have so much sympathy for how things are and how things are manipulated, and how like I wish for people to be like to be on their own path to redemption, and how like every person kind of deals with their own challenges. So like for me, it's like I always fall on the side of it's like I want any person, even my worst enemy, to just do better, you know? But I also understand that this is also your intent in a way.
In my opinion, the only way someone like that ever does face up to it is they are exposed publicly. Didn't I say in the video that many people who even liked Rekkles acknowledged that the reason he had massive behavioural flaws is because he was never in any context punished? That's why players wanted him benched. That's why people wished they could have come out and said, oh, he sort of fucked me over at that team. They felt like because he got away with it, it never was addressed. He could just go on to the next team, onto the next teammate, onto the next coach. And by the way, if you only knew how many of these coaches you might, I didn't even say this in the video, every coach he got pretty much would start to think, I'll be the one who gets through to him. I'll be the one who fixes him. I'll be the one who makes it work. And they would all pretty much later come to the conclusion, oh, it's the same shit as with the last guy. Like, oh, this is actually just a problem it's not me in this scenario. I'm not the equation that is like messing things up. So no, the sad thing is so many people have tried over the years to help this guy and to set him right. And look, you can claim, I don't know me, I haven't talked to him, I wasn't there in the room. You can claim this autism diagnosis has now changed his whole worldview and he realized he's got issues and he's worked on them. That could well be. But first of all, he wasn't in an LEC team when he was doing all that stuff. And secondly, look, he can play in Los Ratones in T1 for the rest of his career as far as I'm concerned. The people who told me this info told me they want any future LEC teammate or coach to at least be aware of this if they play with him. So they go in with open eyes and you know what you're going to get if that's going to happen. Because I'll tell you what, the thing that burned a lot of them the most was when they almost made like support groups after their teams playing with him, mate. They'd message someone from the old team and privately they'd be like, oh, I did the same thing. Oh, I did that to me. What the fuck? And they were like, oh, if I'd have known that, then I'd have put, but no one knew it. And so if no one knows it, isn't knowledge power? Isn't that how we actually fix problems, mate? We make people aware of it. We expose what is bad. By the way, potentially we expose what is good too. But no one's ever exposed what's bad. And I'll just leave you on this note. Everyone who lied and said, well, we all knew all this and it wasn't that bad anyway. Well, if it wasn't that bad anyway, what's the problem with the video? Oh, I've got you on that one, haven't you? So if it was bad, well, you definitely didn't know this because for 10 years you told me he didn't do any of these things and I was making it all up. And then lastly, you all fucking feasted on that Perks video and you loved every single little morsel about what a piece of shit Perks was in Heretics and all how abusive he was. And then when I exposed that Rekkles did way worse for way longer and is way less liked by his teammates behind the scenes, you didn't like that, did you? Well, you know what? Maybe you, the fan, and you, the viewer, need to sip some of that medicine too. And I don't care if it's bitter going down. It's the only thing that's going to help you.
Yeah.
Few questions?
No. I just, I guess I circle back to what I said initially, right? It's like, it's so hard sometimes to, it's like, I've gone by the principle. It's like, I keep all esports stories to myself. Maybe one day I write a crazy book. But sometimes I ask myself, it's like, maybe if the let's say the punishment or the they went through, the right way of redemption, maybe it would be for the better, and that's something that I will have to carry. Do we do viewer questions now?
Yeah, let's do a little 5-minute break quickly. We'll come back and do some viewer questions and we'll end on a high note.
Let's do it.
We are back. By the way, one last thing I didn't mention actually is notice, this is a very key point I want to make. Notice how different my tone and how amplified my voice was in that last segment where I gave my opinions compared to in the video. That's actually one of the reasons I don't care whether people think it's hate or not to expose bad people. I think that's actually love of good people who are innocent. But notice how in the video, I'm actually speaking in a very sort of reserved, because in that video, it's not my opinion. It's not about what I think. And so there's no hate in my heart, bro. I'm revealing what actually happened to like tons and tons of famous people you just don't know the names of in this particular scenario. There, you saw me be my own self. Guess what? One of the things I struggle with, mate, I won't get into why, like a lot of people in my position, is emotional regulation. When we get really passionate about something, we get very angry at times or get very frustrated. That's why oftentimes you'll notice you're doing a good job of it. Monty was very good at it. They just don't take it personally. They know it's the point I'm making. I'm not mad at the person, but that could easily be perceived that way. So yeah, just an interesting little detail there. Right. Let's get into some viewer questions. For people who don't know, the way you ask a question is if you subscribe to the Last Free Nation Discord, because we just get a very good rev share from it, then you will have access to a channel called SI Questions, and you just put them in there. By the way, people tend to just put whatever they want. They put like topics like fucking comics or movies. They have some league ones in there. What do you think of this player, that player? So we did a bunch last time. We're going to do a bunch again. So we will start off with this question, Yamato. Is there even a world where the West can reach a Worlds final, not even win it, in the current format? What changes to the game, if not? Would you need to change to make that possible? Is there a way you could change the game to make a Western team be able to make the final in the current format, that is?
I think they would have to... The more they change and make random, the better the odds. Because it's like the less in control of the teams, the higher the chance of an upset, right? Because it needs to be an upset. It's like the conditions of the West are just worse. It's like in terms of player base, in terms of being culturally aligned, in terms of esports history, in terms of solo queue, in terms of money, in terms of, just facility. It's like I always say my experience in Samuel was the best one ever. It's like every pillar that you would like put underneath a building that is, of course, like an esports team is just better. So the conditions are there. You need an extreme outlier, like the G2 case. It's like people said the West is great, but G2 was an extreme outlier case of 5 players like performing at their peak of their, like just peaking at the same time. The meta was in the right place. IG's downfall was crucial. LCK restructuring in terms of like them not having new talent coming in yet. That was just at the time where like Griffin and Damwon and Sandbox came into the table. Like all of these things, it required the perfect storm for G2 to have so much success. So that's what we need. We need like if the game turns into a dice roll, then maybe, because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I would say there's 2 angles you can do. One, I'll give you an angle from like this last year, right? An obvious angle would be when they had the lane swaps. Dude, G2 almost did this. They almost beat T1. Like that was a tournament where they could have fucked around and actually potentially have made like not only top 3, maybe they could have made the final. I don't think they would have beaten Genji. I think Genji had the mastered, but you saw they had the player strength. They had the right players popping off. They even had a bot lane strength. The lane swaps actually did sort of suit them by the end. That was an edge actually Europe had on people again. You notice in history, lane swap tends to help Europe for some bizarre reason. Probably because, by the way, an angle I would always say is, it allows you to negate the uber god tier Asian top laner. Like if they have some top lane carry, like a Bin or a fucking Smeb back in the day, if you can lane swap against, you just got a way better chance. Whereas if that guy's in a solo lane, it's Gank City in it, he's going to fucking accelerate it. Then the other one would be, like you say, it's to have a lineup that has a unique strength. It's why if you notice, for the number 1 team in a region, I don't just say, take the best top laner last split. Take the best mid laner last split. I always say I want generational talents because I think the generational Westerners have the genius where they can match up with the Asian player. So the obvious examples would be, I actually think the most underrated one in the G2 super team is Perks. What he did from ADC didn't make sense. Now, true, it's partly because Zaya and Kai'Sa were there, so you could just play basic normal champions. But also, he basically played without Peel the whole time. He sort of mid-game shot called. That's not even a thing for most AD carries. And then he played those mages. Like, he could play Syndra and he could pull shit into the bot lane. And then they could flex stuff too. Like, that added so many. Notice how I'm sort of describing, like, why Zeus wasn't just the best top laner. Maybe Bin was a better top laner. But what Zeus brings to a team, you can't match that. You can't get that. You can't get that depth, that extra. So I think you do need that. You need some lightning in a bottle too. So you probably, not only do you need the best players, like, look, you could have Kazi or something like that. You're probably good enough. But then you're probably going to need Mickey X. You know what I mean? You could have fucking, again, if you want to take like Broken Blaze top, that's probably doable. But now I need a genius jungler. You know what I mean? If you give me these players, then I think you've got a chance. And I agree with you, by the way. It'll still probably have to be a fluke, but that's fine. The real issue to me is this. The underrated part of League is there actually aren't that many flukes at Worlds. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually why I never do say that like T1 is shit at Worlds, because the ones at Worlds, they were awesome in. They didn't beat JDG by tripping over. They didn't beat LNG because LNG doesn't know how to play League. Like, they had to really play a high-level League of Legends. So it'll have to be a fluke. But that's, by the way, it's a fluke for almost anyone at this point in time. That's just the nature of the game, right?
Just to follow up on that, because I think it's such an interesting point. It's like the T1 wins and maybe down one EDG, but then it's like FPX was kind of random. It's like the IG was really random. It's like RNG was just like smashing them the whole year, and then it's like, oh, solar lanes are broken now. Look at these champs that you can play in these solar lanes. So it's like sometimes you just so lucky and you're blessed. Like, I think a very, very old school one is LGD back in 2015. 2015 was one of the most egregious world championship because they introduced juggernauts, and it was like Mordekaiser bot that just could take a dragon and just one-shot you with a mace with the Q. And then it was like the other juggernauts with Darius and whatever. And there you saw C9 upset a 2015 Fnatic, the one with Huni, Reign Over, the demonic one, where Balls was playing Darius. And then you had, of course, LGD losing to TSM. It's like that type of craziness opens up for opportunities. But now, and also the fact that it's like single elimination is like certain things you can pull off once, and then it's like, see you. So definitely, but it's like with the Swiss format, you can also fluke your way in very far through the Swiss format too. So there's definitely some luck involved in going
By the way,
far.
There's even another way. It's never happened, but that is a way that it could also happen. What if you ever got it that you had two Western teams get out of Swiss and then beat each other? Then you could have a free quarters. Like, there's another way we can make it. The less matches we have to win, that'll be your fight. The better the chances, right? That just very rarely ever happens at Worlds, unfortunately. Just the nature of the tournament. Right. The next question is, look, I know this is a completely out there one, so just see if you can think of one. What was for you the most memorable episode of any TV show you've watched? Is the one that really comes to mind? Like, this was that was insane. That was a banger.
Well, the easy one is Ozymandias, right? Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay.
It's just so easy to say this one.
A lot of people say that's a very famous one, right?
It's just, that one's.
What did you like about it?
I don't know. It was just, it's like, it's always, I have this deep fear of how shows end. Because like there's very, very few shows that end properly. It's like, bro, I can't even count them on my hand. It's like maybe like The Sopranos ended sick. It's like I liked Breaking Bad ending, and it's like a weird one. It's like fucking Spartacus. That series ended pretty cool. But it's like, other than that, it's like a bunch of series that end like shit, like Westworld, the Game of Thrones, or whatever. But I think that it's just the culmination. It's like Breaking Bad is just a steady fucking progression, and everything kind of made sense, and everything just. All the storylines coming to an end, like in that episode, is just what makes it too damn good, Well, that's a basic bitch one.
I'll give you one that everyone will remember. People just forget this was probably the best episode of the series. Everyone knows season 1 of True Detective, right? It's the episode where he has to go undercover in that like biker gang where they're like buying meth, and it has that crazy shootout where he has to like take a guy hostage and run through, and it has this like tracking shot through the whole thing. It's like an episode that is like filmed, because that's really high prestige TV. It's like a movie, mate, and obviously the actors are fucking unbelievable. I think that is one of the best TV episodes ever. It's a banger if everyone remembers.
I need to rewatch that, man. I like when you said it, I was like, I forgot what True Detective season 1 is about.
Dude, remember,
I need to go back and watch it.
I think there's only about like 8 episodes, so it's not like one of those ones where there's a million to rewatch. You just have to get in the mood and block out an hour or two each night and get back into it. It's a banger.
Fuck the Vince Vaughn shit. Like, where did he go with that? With True Detective.
I'll give you one random one as well. I have to look up what it's called. Let me just look. I'll be able to find it.
Are you an anime guy, Thorin?
Not really. I only really like nerdy ones like Legends of the Galactic Heroes. But there's an episode Wait there a second. There's an episode of the old school Twilight Zone, the black and white one, where it's all like crazy episodes where each one's a one-off story and some unique, like bizarre thing happening. There's a one that is, I won't tell you any of the premise, but this is one of the most terrifying. It's a black and white episode with all these people in like a sleepy town. It's one of the most terrifying episodes of TV you'll ever see. It's an episode called "It's a Good Life," and it was, let's see, what was the episode number? Whatever, look at it. It's called It's a Good Life, it's called. And it's just one where it's really like, it's just it's like Black Mirror basically. It's like really conceptually terrifying. It's a banger one. If you see it, you'll never forget this episode. Right, okay, next question. Let's go to the next one. Indiana Jones trilogy or Star Wars original trilogy? Which are you going with?
I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I fucking hate Star Wars. Like, it's just fucking cardinal sin to fucking say, but like, it's too damn goofy for me. Like, the sci-fi environment, I hate it, bro. The laser beams and the pew-pews and the sounds. Like, I get that it's like an old movie and it's timeless in a sense because all of those effects were new and shit. But if I've always been asked the question, Lord of the Rings or fucking Star Wars, I can't even comprehend someone that goes in that direction.
Right.
But Star Wars, I just fucking hate it. And based on that alone, I'm gonna go with Indiana Jones, man.
I will actually say I will take Star Wars original trilogy. I do actually think, for me, Indiana Jones hasn't aged that well. When I was a kid, I thought it was really good. It's not that Star Wars is my favorite shit, but actually the reason why I don't like any of the other Star Wars after the first trilogy is I did actually fuck with that actual like hero's journey of Luke Skywalker though, and especially I think like the stuff in Return of the Jedi where like they're in the throne room and he's like battling like spiritually his father, and then he has to save him. Like that's fucking that resonates so hard for me. Like even that music, if I hear that like theme, fucking, it pulls on the heartstrings, mate. So just for nostalgia reasons, I'd go with the original Star Wars trilogy.
Or like convinced me to watch it again because I had it on like VHS tapes, you know. So I watched it like when I was a kid, you know. Like I watched them next to like fucking Harry Potter 1 and 2, and I was like, Star Wars just wasn't it. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch it, man, because that memory, my nostalgia is just bad.
Here's the thing, you're right though. Like all the stuff with the Ewoks is goofy as fuck. All the droid shit, it's like fuck this noise. But there are the key element of the story did have some fire, I thought. Right, what do you guys think is the best game of CS, or you could say LoL if you want? It says League of Legends. It doesn't have to be the greatest in terms of quality, blah blah blah. Basically, just pick what it would be. So, what for you is the greatest game of League of Legends of all time? Is the one that comes to mind?
For some reason I got stuck on CS, but I mentioned that in the previous episode.
You do a CS one if you want.
It's just the Wally Ace versus Pentagram on Train. Like that match is just a classic for me. You know, it's like in terms of League. I don't know. It's like some of the recent ones are kind of crazy. It's like even like the Game 5 T1 versus Bitty Bitty is just it's like the gravitas of the game is what matters to me the most. You know, it's like that being a Game 5 is just too perfect. It's just too perfect. It's like a close game. It's just incredible. It's like all you can ask for. It's like the DRX Final 2. So whenever there's like a big game and it's just a final map that just decides it all and it's close and you're just sitting there, damn, this can go either way. That to me is just real shit, you know, because I can nerd out, you know, completely. It's like it isn't a job anymore. This is like my life. I live for moments like these.
In League of Legends, when I remind everyone, you'll all remember it, but people actually forget this one. I forget which game it was, but it was when at MSI 2023, JDG played BLG, and there was this one game you'll instantly remember. It was one where Knight was playing Syndra, and both teams do like the most perfect fights I have ever seen around the Baron. They are just doing fights where like every person, it's like a team fight breakdown, bro. It's doing like the max like range spell into the counter, into the reposition. And these fights are just fucking champagne League of Legends. And I think team fights are the best things in League of Legends. In terms of CS, it's hard to pick because there's so many great games in CS history. If I'm picking a more recent one, I do think that the game where it was the first Katowice where Rops was back in, where he was in FaZe Clan, it was the one where they played against G2 in the final with Monacy. And I think it was the Mirage one that like, there was a documentary that like ESL made where it's like a mega overtime Mirage game. That was a mega game. It was just like a back and forth, amazing rounds. Everyone's doing like crazy hero plays. No one's playing shit. They're just playing awesome CS. That was a banger one. Right, we'll do a few more and then I'm going to skip some to next week because obviously we had a long section about the Rekkles thing, but a lot of these are just ones that can go into future episodes. So Sometimes esports stadiums are referred to as libraries. I don't know if you have this in League. We say that in CS, as in like if you're in Brazil and then the Brazilian team loses, obviously it's like no sound, is it? It's like,
Yeah. Like a showmaker, bro.
Yeah. Which players of your choosing would be the perfect team to make such an occasion? So I guess people that intimidate the opponent or something. I don't know. What would you pick?
Bro, it has to be, bro. Like the only real experience I've ever had with this shit was when we played Loud and I lost. That was like the only time I played against a Brazil team. We lost. We went 4-1 in our group, and it was so humiliating, right? Because it's like we had a performance coach, and he came from a sports background, and it's like he was watching them play, and it's like, bro, like the guys, they've never encountered anything like this, because in traditional sports, it's just like very, very fucking.
Oh, sure.
It's like, bro, you talk shit, you tell the opponent your shit is very physical. You fucking sometimes like you tackle them a little bit extra hard. You put an elbow into the ribs. You know, you do crazy shit.
Like saying shit like I fucked your wife in your ear and shit.
Yeah, bro. Like Zidane headbutted the guy because he said that his mom and sister is a whore. You know?
Final in a World Cup final. Spicy as fuck.
Yeah. And it's like Loud, bro. Like he had a secret weapon under his sleeve, and we had no fucking clue. And these guys, you know, they're playing fucking Misfortune and Mumu, you know, against us. We're playing Caitlyn Braum. We got comboed because we thought they based and they comboed us, and they double killed us on bot, which is like upset and hilly. And we lost the game because I was naive enough to think that we can pull off a Caitlyn and then a Fiora and a counter matchup with Sejuani. I was very, very naive. And we didn't pull it through. And then it's like he just stands up in the middle of the stage, reveals his bicep, you know, as his bot gap. He just points at it, you know, at the players. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing, you know? And at the time, I didn't think too much about it. And I'm like, all right, who cares? We still win this game. We are in good state, no problem. We lose. And then it's like, my players are fucking exhausted. I'm like, it's okay. I'm going to tank the interviews. I'm going to go do it. And then I'm standing in the interview area, and just because we lost, I'm put on the wayside. I'm just standing there watching every broadcast talent taking a picture with this guy showing bot gap. So I'm just sitting there. I'm just seething. And then in the aftermath, I'm like, damn, he really pissed me off. That was well done. And then for me, it has to be like the Brazil teams, because they like I've seen so many clips of them just standing up, like fucking moving from their chair, bro. Like I don't know what they're doing. It's like the closest thing we've had is Yukal after missing his penta, like falling off the chair. But that is like for a good reason. I think we just have to send some of the Brazil teams to intimidate, because I have never seen anyone more animated in the league space. Never.
I don't actually have much of an answer for this one. I'm not even sure what he's really asking, so I don't really get it. So I'll ask a couple more questions and then we'll move on. So I'm going to save the other ones for next week. Don't worry about that. We've had a long episode. Right, here's a question. It's a joke one, but I actually want you to pretend it's a serious question. Actually, I haven't been reading out the names, I've realized as well, so I'll do that now. Architect of Korean esports-based Joe says, if LS had the deep, sultry, sexy voice of Yamato, would history have changed? What do you think?
That's so insulting to me. But at the same time, I guess I have to be grateful that I am blessed with certain aspects. I honestly don't know. Like if I pretend to say things that LS do, like I don't know if it just sounds the same, because I do think the communication style is also like relevant to how I deliver things, because I like to talk like slow and so forth. If I start talking like this, it just changes the demeanor of it all. So I don't know. It's like the words matter more in the end, because that's what lasts. I think like the voice and the tone is just the first impression. And considering he has so many hours of talking publicly, in the end, it's like, it can't just be fucking white noise in your ear to fall asleep to, which I know some people use my videos for.
You think it's a diss to you. I think this is a diss to LS, but it's justified. And I say that someone has a lot of affection for him. I think it was like my little brother in esports. Because here's the problem, Yamato. You're right. He's saying shit that's straight fire. Like, I'm going to make a video on him one day. I think he's one of the greatest thinkers, the most unique thinkers to ever be in esports, mate. Like, he's brought so much to the league community and so many different things to think of, and then his influence over players and teams, etc. But his problem is, he is just like a fucking chipmunk on helium. Like, Like, yeah, if he was like, if he had the emotional regulation I don't have, and he was like, yes, well, I think a lane swap would work better. And actually, look, I'm going to say it's illegal, but obviously that's hyperbole. I really just mean it's not advisable, and I don't think this is the optimal. If he said the same shit that way, look, some people would take it better, but I also don't think he'd be as big a streamer, mate.
Yeah,
I think part of why people watch is for the fucking crazy show. You put the Duracell batteries in his back, slap him, and get him going, show him a normal draft from LCK, and then you fucking just sit back, don't you? Like, right, let the fireworks go off. Right. Let me see. We'll do one last question. It's going to be this one. Big Boy says, who is the retired player that you miss the most? I think it's a good last question.
Honestly, before this year was actually Doimbi. Who else is retired? Like I was very, very sad. Like I didn't think it was time for Nuguri or Khan to stop. They had to pass the torch, man. They just turned the fire off of this burning torch. There was, it's like they like Khan ushered in. It's like he brought back carry top lane, bro. He pulled Jace bans. He was just so insane, and I think he had way more in the tank. And I think the same thing for Nuguri, man. Like this guy was so damn good, and I think he had like a good send off that he could play with Damon again. But I just wanted to see more volume, man, because the conversation about GOAT top laners has always been so strange. So strange. It's like we had a couple of good years of Smeb. Marin always comes up for that one dominant year. And I'm lucky. We are very, very lucky that Zeus and Bin are as good as they are, because now we have like an actual like arms race between them. But now they're lane swapping. So it pains me. The GOAT top conversation always pains me.
Since this is just my opinion, it's obviously hella biased, but it's actually easy for me, bro. I think the fact that this guy retired and doesn't play anymore is a travesty of circumstance and the way public perception is. It's Soaz. If people don't know, I even think on Immortals he was still brilliant. He was still doing moves that could win you a game from fucking top lane, by the way. The role that's for idiots like Adam, where you're just playing a long lane and you're just pushing and not know what you're doing with. This guy was a fucking master of macro from the top lane, could play all styles of top laner. And I just think to myself, if people don't know, he was personally positionally coaching Dorkler when he made that run to top 8 at that 2023 Worlds. This guy is just he's like Mithy. He's one of those just masters of the game, bro. Their brain just interacts with the game differently. And I always thought his game was never about hands. The thing about Soaz is he never had crazy hands, Yamato. He just had that thing where if you're amazing at games, I always think Federer was like this, right? Federer looked like he was never out of position on a shot. So no shot was hard for him because he was always like facing the right way. Technique was correct. If you actually do things correct in the game, you don't need to outhand people all the time. So I think Soaz could still play to the day, mate. I think he could be on an LEC team now and be like fucking, like, imagine if he was on like fucking BDS or something. Like, he'd be a fucking monster, mate.
I can add as well. I can add as well. Like back in when he was on AAA, like back in fucking bro, I was doing season 2, season 3. Like it was during this time. They made the roster with like Linak and Moma, I believe. Yeah. And I remember it's like I always, it's like I loved playing against Soaz because my ego back then, I always thought that I was individually better, but I was always so fucking pissed off playing against him because he knew how to win games. I knew how to play lane because that was what the play was about, Like it was always Irelia, Jax, whatever. But I remember like he played together with Linak. They dove me top. Like that was not a thing, by the way. Like diving me top was not a thing back then. So season 2, they really fucked up my shit, and I just couldn't find any like rhythm. I couldn't find any rhythm in the game against Soaz, even though like I did think if I played in isolation, I would be like better. There was like this moment in time I remember. This is like a famous one. It was like the wicked Soaz 1v1 for who is going to go, I believe, to the All-Star event, because it was like decided by a 1v1. And I remember it's like the genius of Soaz in that one was just how with the champions he picked.
He was just like Draven, Nunu,
and like he just had such a good connection to the game. It's like really, it's like one of those. One of those, like people that work in nature. It's like puts his hand on the grass, like, today the rain is coming through, and I can smell in the air that the sun is gonna come out of this angle. He was just one with the rift, in a way, while we others we were just like fucking, like ogres just playing the fucking lane at the time because it was season 2.
Right, that's going to be it, guys. We'll do some more episodes on questions on the next episode. I think the show's going well. We're getting our groove down.
Yeah.
as I pointed out, because the future episodes won't be about Rekkles, they won't be so contentious. They won't be that fucking. Don't worry, we'll definitely get fiery, and I'll definitely tell people I'm a Wreck 'em and all that shit. But it won't be as you won't be as nervous as you were for Yamato during that like 20-minute segment where you were like, shit, is it over after like 3 episodes? No, it's all good.
Nah, bro, that was chill, bro. That was chill.
It's all becoming something wonderful. Don't worry.
As long as I don't pull a local, I think it's okay, bro.
Yes, exactly. Right, anyway, we'll see you on the next episode. Shout out to everyone who buys stuff from the sponsors. Obviously, click follow on the channel if you want to know we'll go live.